Mhm. Should I stop sharing for a second while we start? Yeah, I do. Thank you so much for the introduction. I am Nayetta Williams Hill, and I'm a gifted and talented itinerant teacher. And today I'm going to be talking to you all about working with your students who are formally identified gifted and talented in general intellectual ability and specific academic aptitude. So I'm going to share my screen with you right now so you can see my slides. Okay, so gifted services. Make sure this is on. Okay, gifted services in specific academic aptitude and general intellectual ability
If
with a
you
particular
hit that
focus.
CC button, just hit the CC, not the down arrow. No, don't hit the drill down. Just hit the CC, and it'll turn on. There
Okay.
you go. Yep, yep, yep. You got it.
All right, thank you. Okay, so we're looking at this with a particular focus on non-traditional instruction, since that's what we're all doing at this moment. All right, so when you think about specific academic aptitude, students are formally identified gifted and talented beginning in the fourth grade. And we usually use the MAP test as a determining factor for their qualification, as well as 3 points of data. So they may qualify in language arts, math, science, or social studies. Then, if you're thinking about general intellectual ability, we use the COGAT test as a determining assessment for this, as well as three other data points. And students who have a general intellectual ability giftedness may have some of these behaviors. They may be abstract thinkers. They might recognize patterns easily and recognize patterns that other students don't recognize. They may have a high vocabulary, especially when compared to their classmates. They may also be one or two grade levels above their peers, as well as observant and very independent workers. So, when you are in your live meetings, really pay close attention to your students, and you can tell from your discussions with your students those who are thinking on a different level. Maybe they're thinking more outside of the box than their classmates. You can tell in their answers if they're using a higher vocabulary, and you can also determine based on the work that they're sending in if they are working independently and able to progress through your assignments quickly. There are multiple delivery options when working with your gifted and talented students. When you are thinking about these delivery options, and I'll get more into those a little bit later in the presentation, you do want to consider the different characteristics of your students. So, you want to think about student behaviors. Are your students independent workers, or do they prefer to work in a group? How are their time management skills? Are they able to complete things in a timely fashion, or does it take them a really long amount of time to complete an assignment? Do your students have expertise on a certain topic? Are they able to talk about something for a really long time and they're very knowledgeable about it and they're able to teach others? Or do they have a high interest in a certain topic where they will be able to become experts in that subject if given a little bit of support and time to do so? You also want to think about your students' strengths. Are they strong in math, English language arts, science, or social studies? Are they meticulous in their work? Do they really take care in what they're doing? And then other student characteristics, are they intrinsically or extrinsically motivated? And how can you tap into that motivation through a virtual learning setting? Are they leaders and are they creative? And again, how do they work with classmates or do they prefer to work independently? So these are some things you want to consider when looking at these different delivery options. Now, gifted and talented services begin in fourth grade for students who are formally identified. However, if you teach kindergarten through third grade, you probably have students in the primary talent pool. Those students also need different things to help them to excel during the school year. And some of those include differentiated instruction, or a differentiated curriculum. So if you have a student who is in the first grade, for example, but they're reading books at a fourth grade level, then you want to make sure that you have them reading those fourth grade level books. They might be by the same author that you're working with your other students, but you want to make sure that those students who need that higher level reading, for example, are being provided that. Flexible grouping. So a lot of times in our virtual learning, you might be able to put your students in different breakout rooms and create different groups. So making sure that you have your students working together in groups based on their interests and abilities. A lot of times it's easy to have our high achieving students kind of help other students because they have the knowledge to work with that student in a particular topic. However, we don't want to hold any of our students back. So it's really important that we group them according to their strengths and interests and abilities so that they're able to progress fully through the school year. Also, regrouping based on individual needs, interests, and abilities of the students. You can be flexible, if you have students who really love art or students who really are interested in, for example, different science experiments, you can group your students according to their interests, and you might find that you have more diversity in those groupings, still allowing all of your students to thrive. And then, of course, using appropriate resources, services, and acceleration options. So, speaking of acceleration options, some of these include early entry into kindergarten, curriculum compacting, which I'll talk about a little bit more in the future slides, higher level activities based on parallel content. So, you might have a topic on multiplication, and you have some students who are working on a higher level of multiplication or doing research into how multiplication is used in a particular career, for example. Subject level acceleration. So, speaking of that first grade student who might be reading at a fourth grade level, you may also have that student collaborate with a fourth grade class and work with that class on reading and during their reading time. Grade skipping and early exit from school. So I do have some links here, and my links are available on the schedule. So here we have the guide to Kentucky's system of interventions, and I'm going to scroll down to the bottom, and the bottom of page 58 is where there are a list of the different types of acceleration. So I've talked about some of these, and it just gives a brief synopsis of the different acceleration types. A few that I didn't mention are continuous progress. So the student is given is given content progressively as prior content is completed and mastered. So they're continually moving through the content. Self-paced instruction. So students are working at their own pace on activities that meet their particular needs. And there are many listed here. Mentoring might be something that you look into during NTI, as well as extracurricular programs. Although they will look different virtually, they still can take place. Correspondence courses, for example, credit by examination, you're looking more into high school towards the end, acceleration in college, early entrance into middle, high school, or college. So this resource is available for you all that you can take a look at it more deeply. And then I also have a link here to the Acceleration Institute. This might be a good resource for your families and for parents. They have some wonderful information for parents and educators regarding acceleration. So and there's lots of resources here and links that you may be interested in terms of meeting the needs of your students. So this is a wonderful resource as well. Curriculum compacting. When you're thinking about curriculum compacting, it's probably something you've done and maybe didn't realize that it was curriculum compacting. So when you compact the curriculum, you start with a pre-test, and your pre-test allows you to determine your student's level of mastery. Once you've determined their level of mastery, you meet with that student and conduct an interview of sorts so that you all come up with a plan for learning. Once that plan is made, then the student can work on alternative options during the class sessions while their classmates are learning that core curriculum. They might be learning additional material that will deepen their understanding. So, for example, you might have a student in the 4th grade and the subject area might be math. So, this student has mastered 2-digit by 2-digit multiplication, and they have also mastered division with 2 and 3-digit dividends and dividers. So, they're ready to work on something else. And you have already realized this through your pre-test of the student. So if you do curriculum compacting, that student might be working on probability and statistics, for example. They might be working on some logical thinking activities and number puzzles. So you're wanting to keep the student challenged and engaged while moving on through a topic that they have already mastered. There's a link here for curriculum compacting resources. I tried to provide you all with lots of links for different resources so that you didn't have to go searching for those on your own. But there are different templates for curriculum compacting materials as well as examples. And you all can look at those at your own leisure as well. All right, collaborative teaching and consultation services. Through NTI, it is possible to collaborate with fellow teachers. I did mention that example of the 1st grade high reader going into a 4th grade class. You could also collaborate with teachers on lesson planning as well as instruction techniques. You might also want to talk with your school counselor about coming in and working with students, especially with social emotional needs during NTI. And we'll talk a little bit about some of those needs that are particular to gifted learners. You might have a gifted and talented itinerant teacher in your building who is able to come around and provide services for the students virtually, and they might meet with groups 1 day per week through a virtual platform. However, if you don't have a gifted and talented itinerant teacher in your building, you might want to contact a colleague who has an endorsement in gifted and talented education or is working on one. They definitely will have lots of ideas and strategies that can help you work with these students. And thinking about your professional learning community, when you meet with your team, talk about those students who have already been formally identified gifted and talented and how you can better serve them. They might even need to work together in their own group, maybe 3 classes meeting together in a separate session or working on a collaborative project together, and also thinking about your primary talent pool students and how you can best meet their needs. So talking with other teachers is a wonderful resource as well. Special counseling services. I mentioned a few of the socio-emotional needs of our gifted and talented students. So here are some more characteristics of gifted children. You might notice that these children advance through developmental milestones. They might have intense reactions to noise, pain, or frustration. They might be particularly sensitive and or compassionate. And one thing that is very common is perfectionism. So it's important that we let our students know that it's okay if they don't know something the first time or if they're not an expert in a topic when it's first presented to them. And it's also important for them to realize that everyone makes mistakes and that we can learn from our mistakes and move forward. So I have a few links here, well, a couple of links here, discussing social emotional needs. And this website has lots of articles focused on gifted learners' social emotional needs. And one thing that I really like here is, if I scroll down a little bit, when they don't fit the stereotype. So it says our stereotype of the gifted child is often wildly inaccurate, leading to misidentification or overlooking gifted kids who don't fit our preconceptions. And they give an example of Calvin from Calvin and Hobbes and how he was the unexpected gifted kid. So that's really worth your reading because there are students who don't fit that idealized gifted box. They might not be your student who finishes all of the assignments. They might not be the student who sits quietly and raises their hand and waits to answer each question. They might be students who don't complete their work. Maybe they're disengaged because they already know the material and they don't want to do something that they already know. They might be students who act out because of boredom or loss of interest in a topic. So it's really important that we look at their strengths and make sure that we don't allow negative, what we might perceive as negative behaviors, to mask their true giftedness. So that this article talks a little bit about that, and this website has lots of great materials. It also has some good materials for parents as well as teachers in terms of resources for meeting your students' social emotional needs. And then I also have here the supporting emotional needs of the gifted. And what I liked on this page are the webinars that they provide. So they have one that's upcoming and it says, Now What? Now Where? When your 2E child needs help away from home. Now, if you're not familiar with the term 2E, it stands for twice exceptional. And you may have students who are gifted and talented and they qualify as that twice exceptional child. These students are gifted, but they might also have an IEP or another physical or mental difference. So this site has great resources for families and teachers, especially during our non-traditional instruction time. Differentiated instruction. So we all do our best to differentiate instruction for all of our students, and it is particularly important to make sure that we're differentiating instruction to meet our gifted learners. So you want to think about students' needs, students' interests, their abilities, and you want to make sure that students are setting goals and making time to achieve their goals. Differentiated instruction can also be looked at through the Institutes on Academic Diversity. There are some wonderful videos here that are very short, and these are more professional development videos for teachers. So you have here some experts, and they give short video clips about instructional strategies, for example, differentiating at the elementary level, for example, very short video clips that might help you in thinking about differentiating and including that in your NTI lessons. Also, the Kentucky Department of Education has some information on differentiation. And if you look at this as well, To the right, we have some resources for gifted and talented, which are available if you were unaware that that was there. And when you look at these, there are plenty of gifted and talented resources and gifted and talented links of interest that you can use to help you better meet the needs of your students, as well as thinking about ways to differentiate the instruction, because we want to make sure that our students are excelling and that we're not holding them back in any way and saying, well, you can't move on. We're only going to this chapter of the book, for example, you can't go any further. We really want to make sure that we are allowing them to excel and that we're nurturing their growth. So that might be a resource that you look at later. And then some online resources for teachers. This is a 6-page document that has lots of links for teachers, and there are wonderful resources that you can use during your non-traditional instruction. Here we have some graphic organizers. These have already been created. You can use these where students can write on them through different applications, through virtual applications and pens and whatnot that you can use. So there are a wide variety of online resources that teachers can use here. There's another one that I wanted to show, the Field Trip Earth, wonderful global resources. This is from the North Carolina Zoo Society. Great resources for your students. And then another that I wanted to show you all because there are many. So this is linked to the presentation so you can look through them if you've not seen this already. NASA is one that I've used with my students, and there's great collaborations there. So they have some STEM activities and some resources for K-4 educators, for example, middle school and high school. This is a really great resource to use during non-traditional instruction as well. Okay, so differentiated study experiences. You can use choice boards during non-traditional instruction, and actually there is going to be a presentation coming up about the gifted and talented choice boards. So those provide wonderful engagement and enrichment activities for students. Also learning stations, and if you have students in a virtual meeting, you can have different breakout rooms that have different activities in each room, just like your student would transition from a station to another station in your classroom, and you could have the students in there for a few minutes. You can travel through those rooms virtually and then have your students move on to another room maybe in 15 or 20 minutes. So learning stations can definitely take place during NTI. Flexible grouping, I discussed earlier, it allows for various levels of ability and diversity without creating distinctions. It promotes interaction and empowers students. It promotes student-driven instruction, and it promotes the use of multiple intelligences. So that's when you have students working together on a common interest, for example, art or science experiments that I mentioned previously. There is a link here for a differentiation lesson. It's a video clip if you want to watch that. I'm not going to click on it right now due to our time, but it is there if you want to see an example of differentiation. Now, distance learning, I'm not going to elaborate on this slide because we're all currently engaged in distance learning. However, once we return to traditional instruction, if you have families who are interested in pursuing distance learning, these are some resources that you can share with them. And there also could be a way for students within your classroom to engage in distance learning through a center type of activity where they work independently in the room. More distance learning, internet resources like I've just shared with you. Television broadcasts are great, especially PBS, KET. Correspondence courses are readily available where students might be collaborating through a college or university and working on different assignments. And then other technology to access courses and resources that aren't available within the school. Thinking about the public library, when available, and using those resources can definitely be beneficial for students. Advanced placement and honors courses, these are thinking more about your high school students. So we have here the College Board, the International Baccalaureate, and then we're all familiar with Khan Academy, which doesn't just pertain to high school. This can start at the elementary level with a particular focus on mathematics. This says in-school enrichment, so this is what we usually think about if we were in the traditional brick and mortar classrooms. However, these enrichment activities can take place during NTI. Your clubs and organizations, your student council, you could create a Google form where students sign up to partake in student council. There could be a meeting, a virtual meeting where student council nominees present their speeches, and then another form where students go in and vote for their representatives. Robotics, that might be a bit challenging, but you might be able to find some simple robotic techniques to teach your students through virtual learning. Chess team could easily take place through NTI. Art club could as well, and even debate team. It's just thinking about these in a slightly different way, but they're all possible if you have students who are interested. We don't want to overwhelm our students, but if we have students who are interested, it's definitely possible. Makerspace, you could have students use materials from their homes to create some makerspace products. And then you have presentation opportunities, performance opportunities, Genius Hour, and choice boards. And I'm going to show you some student samples of presentation and performance opportunities in just a minute. Independent studies are also a great resource to use. However, you need to think about if you give one of your students an independent study, you need to make sure that that student is self-directed, motivated, and self-reliant. These don't work for all students. However, they work well for those who can set a goal for themselves and accomplish their goal. Mentorships, you might collaborate with different businesses or even upper grade level students to be mentors and to have some time where the kids can get together to talk a little bit, or where different corporations can provide maybe a video clip for job shadowing and different things of that nature. Also, resource services. I mentioned the gifted and talented itinerant teacher. If you don't have one, you can collaborate with other colleagues, but this person teaches an approved curriculum, monitors, evaluates, and communicates student progress, and guides the learning process toward the achievement of curriculum goals. Seminars, there are lots of colleges and universities and other businesses that might be willing to come into your meetings to provide some seminars for your students. And then travel study options, we're not doing that right now. However, I did want to show you that WKU has some travel abroad options, and then this is just one website of many where students can find information on study abroad. WKU is also having Super Saturdays virtually that your students might be interested in. There is a fee, but these are all virtual, and it's a wonderful resource for students. So the link is there. So I wanted to show you a few student examples, and these have been done during NTI 2.0. The assignment that I gave my students was to create an all about me in a very creative way. So I had one student who wanted to do a mosaic. So this is her all about me. She asked me if she could do a mosaic, and I told her, sure. This is a second grade student, and she implemented all of these pictures in the form of a lion. So one way that she was very creative using NTI. And then we have the scratch presentation from one of my students who used a coding form to make his all about me. So another very creative way to do that. Okay, so I'll stop that there, but you can see the entire thing if you look at the slideshow. One student did a comic strip to show his All About Me. This is, I believe, a second grade student. And then we had a student who presented a slideshow. So, very creative ways to tackle one topic. Some other examples that my students produced were one child had a puppet show for his All About Me, and the puppet did the entire presentation. I had another student in first grade who wrote a song, and she sang the song for the group. I had a few students who had their parents interview them, and they filmed it and played that. I had other students who created movies that showed different things that they like to do. I had one student who produced a play that was based upon Hamilton, and he showed us that video. I had students do acrostic poems and other poems, slideshows, and timelines. So you can give one example, and the students really take that example to the next level when you allow them to really be creative with it.
You know what I like
So
about
here's
all those
contact
examples?
information if you're interested, and a few references. And I know we're ending the session. If anybody had any questions for me, I just want to thank you all for your time. And thanks so much for allowing me to present.
Thank you for being here. That was a great presentation. I love the amount of
Yeah,
resources you had in there. And that last one, I was trying to get in there, and I was like, what I like about all of those examples, those would be great backpack artifacts because I'm never going to let the backpack
definitely.
go. That was great.
Definitely. Thank you.
Well, thank you for being here.
Okay, thanks for having me.
No problem. All right, up next, and we see them waiting in the wings. Lindsay Dodderwich, yep, there we go. Tiffany Morrison with gifted primary talent pool ideas and resources for NTI. And much like we just saw with the last presentation, gifted or not, there are tons, oodles of ideas and just tips to help you along during NTI and in the normal classroom when we get back to brick and mortar. Great information. I will hand it over to you, Tiffany and Lindsay.
All right, thank you. So we are going to talk about primary talent pool services with NTI 2.0. Lindsay is going to introduce herself and then she'll put up the slide so you can see it.
I'm Lindsay Darwyke. I am a gifted itinerant teacher for the district working at 4 elementary schools. And I'm now going to share my screen and let Tiffany kick us off.
All right, and I'm Tiffany Morrison. I'm also a gifted itinerant teacher for the district, and I work with 4 elementary schools as well. So.
Tiffany, one thing you guys are presenting, thank you, Lindsay. Can you speak up a little bit louder? You're a little bit soft there, dear.
Yes.
Oh, that's good.
All right.
Here goes.
All right.
Oh,
so
Lindsay's a pro. You got it. Can you hit that hide button, Lindsay, and I'll leave you guys alone. Awesome.
Okay, so we are going to talk about primary talent pool services, but we're trying to focus more on NTI 2.0 so that when you're working with your students, you can make sure that these are strategies that you can use now. So when you you can go on and click on Lindsay. Okay, and I'll let Lindsay talk about this.
So these are gifted service options for all the time. And we have bolded the services that our department is recommending for NTI. So we're looking at collaboration and consultation. So that's working with a GT certified teacher to either collaborate where you're in a co-teaching situation or consultation where you're planning with a GT certified teacher, independent studies, enrichment services, and then differentiation are the ones kind of that are easiest to use during NTI and then transition back into the school building pretty easily.
Okay, so when we talk about enrichment, there are several like grab and go almost strategies that you can use within your NTI teaching that you can use. So choice boards, RAPs, and we're going to talk about each of these. PBL, Think Law, which is something new to our district that we'll talk about. Differentiation, you can also use choice boards for that. You can use rafts for that, and then tiered lessons, which is all about the teacher and their planning, and your small groups, and then independent study.
So the first one is choice boards, which we as a district are very familiar with now, especially after NTI 1.0. For primary talent pool, they can be organized by many different ways. Their learning styles, so how they prefer to demonstrate their learning. You can organize them by an overall overarching compelling question, by subject area. So you might have a choice board that's just about adding 3-digit numbers. You can organize it by their areas of giftedness. So when we're talking about primary talent pool, that includes all areas of giftedness. So you can create choice boards that are leadership based or visual performing arts based and so on. You can organize them by Bloom's level so that they get more challenging as you go down the rows, or even by their student levels. And so we have here some different choice boards that we've created. The first one I'm going to share is we have an entire Google Drive of content specific choice boards these are ready-made. You can grab and go. If you like it but want to make changes for your specific students, you can easily make a copy in your drive and they're ready to go. So up here, they are organized by topic. And then as you see, there's ones about myths. This was a social studies one where they are looking at different places around the world. Here's a standards-based for 4th grade. So those are ready-made for you all. The next one are we back in NTI 1.0 made weekly gifted and primary talent pool choice boards. We have those linked here. I will pull one up just to show you all how they are organized. There's no rhyme or reason on there's not a topic or anything. So just pick one that sounds good. And then these are not content specific. There is pretty much 1 or 2 boxes for each content area. So there's ELA ones, there's math ones, there's leadership, creativity. We tried to cover all of the different areas of giftedness within the choice board. And there are, I think, 6 weeks or 7 weeks worth of those. The next one is for your kind of creative or reading specific gifted primary talent pool students. We have a reading and creativity, like merging them together choice board. And I'm not going to pull that one up, but that's there for you all. And then for NTI 2.0, what we have started doing is creating a interdisciplinary choice board based on the JCPS curriculum map units. So this is for Unit 1, taking Unit 1 across all content areas and trying to merge them together around a compelling question. And so there is a K1 choice board, a 2-3 for primary talent pool, and then for 4-5 as well. And again, these are all around a overarching concept, but cover different content areas.
Okay, the next one is the RAF strategy. So when you're doing the RAF strategy, it is a writing strategy, and it is the role that you want the students to take on. Whom are they writing to? The form that you want them to write in, and the topic or the idea that they're going to write about. Within this slide, we have a blank template. So you can click on that, and that's just a really simple blank template that you could fill out for those. And there's 4 choices, so it goes across the row. And you can just choose, like, if you have a book that you're reading, they could have 4 different characters or 2 or 3 different characters, and then different perspectives that they're taking while they're writing. If you go to the RAF's writing strategy boards, that will take you to a folder of RAFs that are all based on stories that you can find online. So from Storyline Online, which for our younger students, our primary talent pool students, it will obviously read the story to them. There are some also ones that are from the remote learning section of like the Scholastic. So they're all texts that all students would have access to. But this just shows you an example of one from the book As Fast as Words Could Fly. And you'll see the first one, the role is Mason. He is writing to people invited to the sit in. He's going to write a letter. And at the beginning of the book, you were asked to write a business letter to call for a sit-in, a protest. What was in the letter? Write it. So they would just have different ones, and you could get creative. They don't just have to write in a like Word document. They could create presentations. They could create um, speeches, conversations, text messages, lots of different things when you're creating the format that you want them to write in. And then the last link on the slide is just a link to a raft presentation that I did at the Gifted Institute during that time. So you could always go back and watch that if you wanted more information on the raft strategy.
Next one that we recommend for primary talent pool learners is project-based learning, and there's a lot of different ways you can run this with primary talent pool. We still, like any good PBL, for our primary talent pool, believe it should answer a driving question. So you should have a overarching thematic question that they are trying to pursue. We, especially in these younger grades, because we're talking about kindergarten through third here, love to use these in a collaboration between students. So they're not on an island on themselves completing these, but there's collaborations, and there's some different ways you can do that. You could create different PBLs that are directed towards different areas of giftedness and group your students that way. So if you have 3 or 4 students who are gifted in leadership, you might create a PBL that targets that area. Or another way is to do kind of heterogeneous groups where you might put students from the different areas. So you might have a couple students who are creatively gifted, a couple that are math gifted, a couple that are reading, and you might put them all in a group and give them different roles within that PBL to target their area of strength. And these really allow for your primary talent pool learners to dive really deeply into the grade level content, or even to enrich above grade level content. And so this is something that if you're meeting with a small group online, maybe you're meeting with some of your tier 2, tier 3 students, or you're running a guided reading group, putting these kids in a group together to work on a PBL allows them that enrichment while you're meeting with other students. And we have a bunch of PBL resources down here. We have linked for you all the JCPS PBL template to use for planning and to push out for students. That was shared probably week 2 on the digital learning channel. We loved that one, so that one is down there. I have linked another template planning document that I have used and created, kind of merged some different ones together that I found easy for me to use. We've linked 2 different PBL sites that we've both used for our primary talent pools, and they have some free skeletons of PBLs that you can kind of take and run with based on your learners. And then I have an example PBL that I did with some K1 students that were identified for primary talent pool, just to give you kind of an example to look at if you're wanting to plan one for your students.
All right. Now the next strategy is kind of in relation to the book Thinking Like a Lawyer. So we have a new JCPS partnership with Seal, who is the author of Thinking Like a Lawyer. And when in this partnership, he's giving us access to all of his lessons that he uses with this program. So, Thinking Like a Lawyer is designed to unleash the critical potential of all learners. He's very big that this critical thinking is not just for gifted students, it is for all students. All students need to be able to think critically. So, what he does is for our K through 2 students, he uses nursery rhymes to ask questions like, for example, like Goldilocks and the Three Bears. Like, does anybody ever think, hey, Goldilocks is actually a criminal? She breaks into a house, she steals things, she breaks things. So, like, it's getting kids thinking about nursery rhymes and what's happening. So then you have in the older grades, you have court cases. So, for example, there's a court case about a 5-year-old boy that pulls out a chair from his aunt, and his aunt sues him for her basically her doctor bills to cover those doctor bills. So it's like having them look at very interesting cases and then just going through the critical thinking process and thinking, would he be charged? And then at the end, they can find out yes or no if they actually were in real life. So there's always a think starter. So some kind of thing like, for example, with the chair one, it's, you know, are there times when you should like hit someone, or what would be your reasoning for that? Is that okay? And then there's a lesson about the actual court case, and then a think bigger. So if we just go around and start charging all 5-year-olds with battery for doing something, what's that going to mean for our world? So it's just thinking through those types of things. And he went through law school, so he uses that lawyer brain to kind of teach kids how to think critically. And so at the bottom, if you are a Jefferson County employee, there are links to the teacher materials, the student materials, and all the cases and things that he uses for these lessons. So this is a great resource. And for using like in small groups and things like that of thinking critically. And Lindsay is opening one of the folders. So there is one that's called distance learning, and that one just kind of lays out the lessons in a way that you could use them in this setting, like in your Google Classroom, things like that. So it kind of talks to you about how you could use it in that way. Um, Also, with the student materials, that's something that could easily be put in their Google Classroom. And then the teacher materials would be kind of like what you would use to go along with the lesson. So um, there are great resources that you could kind of dive in and look at and see if that is something that you would like to utilize for critical thinking.
Next up is tiered lessons. And as we stated at the beginning, this is more of a way to plan for primary talent pool and your small group instruction during NTI, not necessarily grabbing those resource. And so you can tier lessons. This is just basic differentiation and a way to do that. So you can tier your lessons based on the content. So in that case, you're looking at kind of standard progressions, the process. So how is the student going to learn these things can be differentiated or tiered, or the product, how are they going to demonstrate their learning? And so when we really think about tiered lessons, our new standards document for ELA is amazing because it already has the grade level progression laid out for you. And so that's one way to think about creating a tiered lesson. And so these tiered lessons are created for your entire class, but you differentiate based on your different levels. And so you're tackling your primary talent pool academic kids if you're differentiating it on content by moving them up through the standards. And so we have an example of a tiered lesson that's based on third grade standards. And as you can see, it is just minor tweaks that can really bump up the level or the product or the process. In this case, I believe this one is the content is differentiated or tiered. As you can see, all of them are creating the same type of product to demonstrate their learning. and they're all using a text that's the same, so their process is the same. They're just doing different content with it. So these get more difficult as you go down. And I just like how it shows that it doesn't have to be three totally different lessons to hit your high primary talent pool learners. You don't have to create a totally separate lesson for them. It can be a tweak that just bumps up that level for them. And this could also be a tool for planning for those small groups, and you can group your primary talent pool learners in a group um, and differentiate that way.
All right, and our last service that you could use to service your primary talent pool students is independent study. Now, with intermediate students, independent study is usually completely, on their own. They're just checking in every now and then. Now, with younger students, you're obviously going to have to. This is something you would have to, model, and you would have to like check in a lot more because they're working a lot on their own. It is allows for student choice of topic, project type. It has independent checkpoints with the teacher, engagement through interest, and individual student pacing. So the couple of things we have here is we have a link to Wonderopolis, which has like great like starting questions. I know one is like, what would happen if you wake a bear during hibernation? So like questions that students might have that like would increase the interest that they're having, and then they would find out that information by research on their own. And then we have an independent study template that's kind of a mesh of a lot of things that you could use with like shows you how to make like checkpoints and um, even a form you could use for checkpoints and things like that. So that's there in case you would want to make your own or use that one for independent study, just to guide students on how to research, how to collect their data, their information, how to put that, how to collect those sites that they're using, how to collect the information that they're finding out. So that's there for use if you ever wanted to look at what an independent study could look like as they're collecting and going along with their research.
And then I was just going to add, Tiffany, about independent studies. Even though it's called an independent study in primary talent pool, if you can find students with similar interests and either pair them or group them together, especially in NTI, where they aren't getting as much collaboration as they would in the classroom, that's one way to help with kind of the maybe lack of independence that some of our early learners may not have yet to self-monitor throughout an independent study. And then, yeah, I think a lot of the time, some of our primary talent pool kiddos struggle with finding a topic. And so I love that Wonderopolis gives them kind of a starting place and some options and choice.
Definitely. So here's my again, I'm Tiffany Morrison. Here's my Twitter and my email if you need anything. You can follow us on Twitter. We tweet a lot, and once our students start, coming up with their own projects and stuff, we also do like to do like shout outs to our kids and things like that. So follow us if you would like to. There's also you can follow just Gifted in general at JCPS GT. So
All right, ladies, thank you. You still have a few minutes left if you want to talk about anything else. I will say that really excited to see that you still have the choice boards on there. I think we've really found the power of those during NTI 1.0, and a lot of people kind of moved away from it. But they're a great resource within the classroom to give your students choice, even if you're just pulling them down to your content area and giving them different options for what they're doing. I think that was great. And I had never seen the Think Law. Oh, I loved that. That was great.
yeah, it's a
We're
great
really excited about it.
yeah, it's a great resource that anybody in Jefferson County can check out, use those resources. He has, I mean, his book is amazing too. If you ever want to pick it up, it's called Thinking Like a Lawyer, but it's all about critical thinking, and you can even use that in it talks about how to use that in math. And he has a really cool strategy. It's like think like Joe Smo, and it's like coming up with what is the best worst answer. And so it's just kids thinking differently than sometimes we normally do. And he even talks about how you can make standardized testing practice critical. So I mean that's something we have to do in class, and so that's just a cool way to do that. But
Yeah, I thought that was great. I mean, I was really, as soon as I saw you talking about it, I was like, wow, that really pulled out. See, I was tying it to science. That's where my heart is. And I was like, wow, that's perfect for, doing research and investigation and just different ways to approach that thinking process. Because sometimes we forget to think out loud because the students don't know how we're processing that information. So that's really cool to see it. It gives them different ways and makes them a little more comfortable with doing it themselves.
right.
Lindsay, did you have anything?
I don't think so. I would just say all of those resources that are linked are for you all to use as you please. Anything you want to change, just make a copy of. There are some things that force a copy already. And then check out our Gifted website for even more resources. We're trying our best to just give you all things that you can grab and run with, because I know everyone is busy.
No, absolutely, and starve for resources. I mean, the more you have to choose from, the better, because the more you can give the students to choose from. Then it's just really good. And like I said, just says gifted on it, and this title of the last two presentations were gifted, but I don't see. I was looking at it from a middle school science AP perspective. That was great, and we appreciate it. Thank you. And all of those resources are linked in your presentation, which is linked inside of the schedule for today. And when the videos are cut up and put out there individually, we'll link that right into the description underneath the video where that subscribe button is if you've never hit that before. Hint, hint. But ladies, thank you. Tiffany Morrison and Lindsay Dotterwike, if I said it right that time. I do believe I was listening.
You got it.
Hopefully I'll remember next time you're on, because I think I forget every time. We appreciate you. Thank you for being here and sharing all that great information.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right. Now, looking at this for the rest of the day today, and I've put that schedule into the chat a couple times there. You can see we have 1:30 coming up here in a minute or two. Multi-tiered systems of support, MTSS web resources with Naomi Bryan, Sandra Hansel, Donna Lawson. I'm going to get everybody's names wrong today. We then have 2 o'clock teachingbooks.net. Updates, that's library media, I do believe. Extracurricular clubs during NTI, because everybody said, well, how do I do the clubs? I kind of want to get that contact. Presentation just for that at 2:30. Then 3 o'clock, our friends from Savas will be back looking at Success Maker, if I can say it, addressing that COVID slide in reading and math. So a little bit more specific with Savas than just the general what is Realize and how do I get to it. They're going to look at that COVID slide and how to address reading and math. I'm Jim Unger with JCPS Digital Innovation, and if you don't know who we are, you can check us out on Twitter at JCPS Dig In. Check out all of the great things going on in and around the district and technology in general. Need some ideas? Check it out. Oh, look at Wild Elementary here. Did a virtual field trip to Fort Herod, and got a lot of great information, different perspectives, some good history there. Virtual field trips, amazing. I love it. There was one up here I liked earlier. Right here. It ran from me. It's using virtual Legos to build an object. And that was just really cool. Different ways they got to Apple. All right. So, moving right along. Back to me. You are on the JCPS Digital Learning Channel. It is 1:30, and I have a trio of ladies here to talk about MTSS resources, I believe, if I remember correctly. You ladies are welcome to unmute and talk to us.
Hi, Jim.
Hello.
I'm trying to share my screen.
It's a little bit different. If you go to the 3 dots at the top right, you'll find the share screen option there. We use the good old Hangout antique software.
Got it.
There you go.
I'm presenting. I'm turning on closed captions.
Oh, you were on it. Good job. Large bota, if you just click on the button itself, not the little drill down, it will turn them on. Your screen will shift a little bit when you do it. Yep, click right there.
All
There
right.
you go. Perfect.
So you're here today to learn about MTSS web resources, and we're so happy you joined us to learn. So what is MTSS? MTSS is really about data-driven decision-making. It's also about thinking about professional development and how you're really aligning that professional development to support your students. It's about school improvement and how is that becoming sustainable. It's also about aligning resources and supporting your students through instruction. Why is this important? It's important because this is federal law. It's also state law that we implement MTSS. And in federal law, it really thinks about the process for making decisions, but how are we tiering students and how are we focusing on enrichment and interventions? Why is it important? It's also important because these systems aligned with all 3 pillars and all 6 systems in the 6 systems for improving the learning environment. Thinking about the MTSS department, there are actually several teams that support MTSS throughout the district. So we have teaching and learning, and that is MTSS academics for Donna Lawson. And we also, under culture and climate, have MTSS behavior with Sandra Hensel, MTSS re-engagement with myself, Naomi Brahim, and MTSS engagement that I also lead. So you're here today to learn about the new MTSS district website that we are rolling out today. And we're so excited about this resource because we have put all of our MTSS in one location. And so you'll find there's a homepage at the top that brings you here that shows you the 6 systems. It shows you even System 5, it targets System 5 because a lot of this MTSS work is housed in System 5. It also has at the top tabs for academics, tabs for behavior, and tabs for engagement. Next, Donna Lawson will talk about MTSS academics.
Well, I'm Donna Lawson, and I head up the MTSS academics team. So I get to work with an amazing group of teachers in that team. As Dr. Brahim just mentioned, the work of MTSS academics encompasses all of the 6 systems, but particularly pertains to System 5, academic outcomes, and Component 4, leveled supports of the MTSS implementation plan. So our goal is to reduce the number of students performing below grade level through acceleration opportunities. And as you can see, a few ways we can help support schools are identifying students who need short and long-term academic supports, all the way down to analyzing the impact of strategies and interventions. On that first page, there's also a link to MTSS academic support that folks can click on. This sheet shows, or this button is the first page of MTSS academics, and it gives a visual representation of the tiers. Notice the center section on the little eye-shaped shape is Tier 1 core instruction for all students, with additional enrichments or interventions depending on individual student needs on either end of the Tier 1. This is because MTSS systems work ensures that all students have what they need to be most successful. At the very bottom of this page, we also have supporting documents, including the MTSS implementation plan, essentials of acceleration plans, and MTSS academic focus. We also have that MTSS support button as well. The next page is academic support. Here we outline our goal, which is to reduce the number of students performing below grade level, as well as specifics for how we can support schools. Next on this page is a description of tiers 1, tier 2, and tier 3, which outlines specific characteristics for each tier. And then further down the page is math and ELA resources, as well as several texts highlighted. On this sheet, the next button we are at is the acceleration system. The first thing that you see is how acceleration is very different from remediation. In acceleration, the skills are handpicked and delivered just in time and connects directly to core instruction. Acceleration is essentially a paradigm shift from remediation. Further on down that page is a more detailed description of tiers 1, tiers 2, and tier 3. The last button is assessment literacy, where here you'll see the recently revised assessment landscape for JCPS. You see the connection to System 2, which is effective use of data with linked resources to optimally use MAP. And next up is Sandra Hensel.
Good afternoon. I'm Sandra Hensel, and as Dr. Brahim said, I am working with the MTSS Behavior Department. And the MTSS Behavior Department, there's a team of resource teachers that work to support schools in implementing behavior systems, school-wide behavior systems and frameworks. We use two different frameworks in JCPS. The first one is PBIS, or Positive Behavior Interventions and Supports. And the second one is the Behavior Support Systems Model. And what that is an alignment of PBIS and restorative practices. In addition, the team supports school personnel in understanding and utilizing classroom management strategies. They can go in and coach individual teachers as needed. So on our page, we have links to 4 different areas. The first one is the JCPS PBIS webpage. And on this page, you can find out more about PBIS, what it is, how to implement it. Included in the page is a downloadable copy of our PBIS implementation guide, which is designed just for JCPS implementation, and it helps school staff assess their systems and can help ensure that you're implementing PBIS with fidelity. The next area is the JCPS Restorative Practices webpage. Now, at this point, there are just 30 schools in JCPS who have done the full training and are implementing the behavior support systems model, which, as I said, is the alignment of PBIS and restorative practices. An additional 20 schools are on deck to be trained this summer. And then this spring, we'll accept applications for the summer 2022 cohort. Hard to believe we're already talking about 2022. The webpage provides information about the alignment model and also has another implementation guide just for JCPS implementation as well that can be downloaded. We also have a link there to our classroom management modules. So we created 10 classroom management modules, and each module has both an elementary and a secondary version. The modules are on topics like effective instruction for behavior, building positive relationships, creating a positive learning environment, and even has a module on addressing the most challenging behaviors when your strategies in the classroom just aren't working with a student. What do you do at that point? Those modules are designed to really be used in a group. They can be used in a PLC. They can be used in a faculty meeting. They could be used if your school has a new teacher cohort. They're great learning tools, but they're also perfectly fine to be done on your own if you're just interested in one of the topics and want to learn more about it. Finally, in that section, there's a behavior intervention grid. And this is an interactive tool for classroom teachers that can help the teacher determine appropriate interventions for specific behaviors the student might be exhibiting. So the tool takes the teacher through a series of questions, suggests a couple of interventions, and then even provides information and sometimes even like sheets that can be downloaded and used. But so it's general information on how to use the intervention. The next section on our page is links to some articles that discuss the use of PBIS and restorative practices with special needs students, as well as diverse learners. And so there's a great resource if you work with a lot of students in those populations and want to see how that fits in. And then finally, we provided links to the websites of a few of our major state and national partners. So first is pbis.org, which is the national PBIS website and has a lot of really helpful articles and research. Second is the International Institute for Restorative Practices, IIRP, and they were very instrumental in helping us develop this alignment model along with PBIS national organization. And so on the IIRP site, you can find additional information on restorative practices. And then finally, Kentucky ABRE, which is run by Dr. Terry Scott at the University of Louisville. And on that site, there's a lot of just quick videos that effectively addressing student behavior and providing tiered interventions.
So if anyone has ever, let me apologize, Sandra. It was, I am running the PowerPoint and it's really hard to manage the PowerPoint and see the delay. So I apologize, I was not on the right slide for you. So for MTSS re-engagement, this is a team who really acts as consultants for middle schools and high schools, transitioning students back from alternative schools. And now we're going to talk about MTSS engagement. And MTSS engagement is a team of resource teachers that focus on the toolkit work. Our work with the toolkit is to really increase achievement and maximize student engagement. We have 6 toolkits, and the 6 toolkits focuses on teacher clarity. Another focuses on self-reflection and assessment. Another focuses on modes of instruction and modes of student practices, formative assessment, classroom systems that support behavior, and feedback via engagement. We also have, I'm so excited about this, we put on our website a link to the high yield practice success criteria for each. So success criteria for each high yield practice. We have over 30 high yield practices that can be used throughout the building and for teachers to really learn how to engage students. Our next, I think I hit back. For our next slide, you'll see our actual success criteria for each of our high yield practices. So that really teaches you how to really implement these in the classroom. This past summer, we hosted 5 trainings online virtually that were really focused on some of our high yield practices. And if you notice, we still have those trainings available. And I'm so excited that you can still access that training material. And if you notice, there are training materials for concept mapping, for reciprocal teaching, providing formative evaluation, opportunities to respond, and feedback as a result of engagement. On the website, you'll find the success criteria that I showed you. You'll find those learning opportunities. And what you'll also find, if you notice at the top of our toolbar, we'll have individual web pages for each toolkit. And those web pages have on there a link to the actual toolkit itself and a link to the presentation, but also it has a link to these culturally responsive considerations. We've also included a link to those resources in this website so that you can access them pretty easily. One point that I want to make as you look at these strategies is that we actually have a high yield practices needs assessment that we use with all administrative teams. And it's really important that your school knows how to use these practices and which practices are best. And I want to quickly talk about the implementation plan because this year we revised our implementation plan. And so we're so excited about the new revision and schools really using the PLC process to learn and to grow and to determine what supports are needed for kids. And so in the MTSS plan, we have or it can be used actually for MTSS teams. It can be used for the PLC process. It can be used for administrative purposes. And really, this document can be used as CCV support. We use it as state documentation and district support. There are 7 components in the MTSS plan, and each component really goes through the PLC process. So for component 1, it really is talking about analyzing data. Component 2 is universal screeners. 3 is really determining the problem area, so making a definition for that problem area. Component 4 is about academic and level supports, and the rest of the components, again, really follow the PLC process. This page is our favorite page in the implementation plan because it really talks about the directions, and it has individual samples that you can click on to see what is included in each component. And so if you'll notice on the screen, it's showing component 1, and that's collaborative analysis of data, but it also in blue at the bottom has some resource links that you can use immediately to create your plan. And so we're, again, excited about the plan. We're excited about this new website. So hopefully you'll go out and you'll see the website and use these resources. Feel free to reach out to us. We're here as a support for you. I have one more slide that is taking its time to pop up on the screen, and that's this quote. And it's, "The whole purpose of education is to turn mirrors into windows." And so thinking about MTSS, it's really about leveled supports and leveled systems for supporting students, increasing achievement, increasing engagement, reducing behavior, but again, providing supports for all students. So we talked really fast. Are there any questions that people have that we can answer?
I have not seen any questions because I think most of the people in the chat right now are MTSS teachers.
Great, that's great.
No, it's amazing. There's so many people here for support. I love it. Amy Down said she loved that quote.
Donna, Sandra, do you have anything else to add?
Well, just one thing is our teams will be available tomorrow, this week with the AIC meeting to offer support with that implementation plan. If anyone wants to get some support, that might be a good time to ask a few questions.
Excellent. Anyone else? You guys have a couple more minutes if you want. Stage is yours.
Well, what we can do is actually show the actual MTSS plan.
Perfect.
And so need to share my screen again, or actually show the website. Go back in to Hangouts and share my screen again.
Yep. You were sharing. I was seeing your screen.
I'm sharing. I'm still sharing?
Yes, ma'am.
Awesome. Okay, great. And so as you can see, this is the actual MTSS website. It's not showing up just yet, but you'll see it in just a minute. You see it? Okay, great. So you see the MTSS website, and on the actual website are the links to the 6 systems, and to system 5, you'll see definitions for MTSS. You also see that nice PowerPoint slide that really defines what MTSS is. And you'll also see links to the academics, the behavior, and the engagement website. One thing that Donna added here that's really helpful is an MTSS interactive decision tree that if you have an academic concern, it literally walks you through how to make decisions, tiered decisions on your specific concern. That great plan that we talked about at the end is here, and then also a link to PD Central. And so you saw some of these items as we were actually walking through the PowerPoint, but here on the website, you'll actually see that is the cone that Donna showed. So on one side you have remediation, and then on the other side there's enrichment, and then links again to those supports that she talked about. So the academic support website is here. It has the tiered supports, and then also some leveled resources for math and ELA, including information on differentiation and culturally responsive teaching. For acceleration system, again, Donna talked about this. You have some things that that she needs to give us access to, but I'm sure she will once she sees that it's not working. But then there's also a chapter on acceleration that would be a good book study or resource for PLCs to really figure out how to start the acceleration process. And the assessment literacy website is again, she went over these assessment landscapes that are included here, including map information, as well as how to progress monitor. And now you can actually see what's on the behavior tab, since when Sandra was talking, it was not showing up on the screen there. These are the links to PBIS and restorative practices, the classroom management modules, and the behavior intervention grid, as well as those resources that she mentioned, including links to IIRP, PBIS, and Kentucky ABRE. And what I will tell you is that link to Kentucky ABRE is really valuable. It has a lot of great videos that can be shared in your behavior work. So in your behavior team, you guys could watch some videos to really understand the PBIS process, or if you're having some specific issues, there are links there to those videos that can help. And lastly is the engagement website. And what it does is it links you to the MTSS Toolkit website. And that's because we had a website already created, so we decided to just show you that resource and share that resource instead of recreating the wheel. And so on the homepage of the MTSS engagement website, you can actually see that PD process, the PD information that's available. So those 5 PDs that could be used for any kind of enrichment that's needed. So through the PLC process, it could be used in the place of a faculty meeting. Training could be used as one-on-one training for teachers and supports. It's just whatever is needed. But that information is out there and ready for you to use. A list of all of our high yield practices. Again, we have over 30 high yield practices available. And lastly, on the homepage are those success criteria that really help you understand how to use each of our high yield practices. And then you see at the top, there are links to each of the toolkits. There's a site for each toolkit. And on our toolkit, you'll find that we have a link to the actual toolkit itself. So when you click here, you can download it as a PDF. We also have the link to a presentation that really explains what the toolkit is. It's kind of like an intro presentation for each of the toolkits. And then lastly, we have a section for considerations on each of the toolkit websites. And so, Jim, I am going to stop sharing my screen because I've run through all of the website. I'm not sure if there have been any questions that are come through, but we'd love to answer any.
No, there have not been any, but if they want, we'll give them some time. There's about a 30-second delay between us talking and what actually shows up on YouTube. And I linked the schedule, so the presentation's there. Hopefully Donna finishes sharing all the information for the website.
I'm on it.
And I really liked the success criteria. That was really interesting to me to see those. Because, I mean, that's just really, if you're getting those, yeah. So who would you recommend, or who is supposed to be using the information on this site? Or is this available for everyone to use?
It's available for anyone to use. Our focus is really on teachers and school administrators. And those teachers can go in and actually look at those success criteria, even in a PLC, and talk about to see if they're using evidence-based strategies, and to really determine if their students are getting their learning. And that's really what that success criteria is about.
I really like the idea of, I mean, that just really hit it there where I was thinking during a PLC, that'd be great. Hey, Janet, could you mute your mic, please?
You bet.
Thank
In fact,
you.
I'll just hang up.
Oh, or that. Was I too mean?
I don't think you were.
I think you're okay.
Yeah, it'd be all right. I should be back. Yeah, but the PLC, that was a great idea. I mean, those are some great things to say, okay, are we doing this? Are we doing this? How are you doing that in your classroom? Yeah, that's perfect. Wow, I really like that. Thank you. Anything else from you, your team?
No, we're happy to be a resource.
I'm glad we had those extra minutes to go back through the website. That was good. Good to see. So thank you, and I will quit harassing you guys to talk more. Donna, Sandra, thank you. Naomi, awesome. Great stuff.
Yes.
We appreciate it.
Thank you.
So we're
Thanks for having us.
We're
No
happy to
problem.
be here. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, and that wraps up the MTSS web resources at 1:30. Up next, we have our library crew, who I scared off just a bit, with teachingbooks.net and some of the updates you can find there. And then at 2:30, we have extracurricular clubs and how to accomplish that during NTI, which should be great. And at 3 o'clock, for the final hour from 3 to 4, we have Savas trainers talking specifically about Success Maker, and I get that wrong every time I say it, Success Maker, Savas, a lot of S's in there, addressing the COVID slide in reading and math on the JCPS Digital Learning Channel, where hopefully you're watching this. Also, if you want to follow us on Twitter, it's at JCPS Dig In for digital innovation. And there I see Miss Janet, Miss Alyssa. Oh, she made it in. That's good. Our outside help from Teaching Books. How are you all doing this afternoon?
We're very well, thanks. How about you? You've been busy all day.
Yes, we have. We are very busy, and we are appreciating you all being here to help us out and get this information out to our teachers to use.
Are you ready for us to go ahead, or are we waiting for the 2 o'clock hour?
We can wait for the 2 o'clock hour to see if maybe we have some librarians or other teachers just jumping on at that point to see you specifically.
Okie doke.
I will take another minute here and scroll through real quick and look at all the things going on in NTI on the JCPS Dig In hashtag. This is at Gutermuth. I always mess that name up too. Bad day for me talking today. I just don't know. JCPS here. Look at this Cinderella dressing up. Amazing. The virtual Legos. I talked about this earlier. Which is a great math project there for our littles. Happy Monday. Happy following from Kyle Chandler. Digital Learning Channel. A little warning here popping up. Somebody is subscribed, so they're getting alerts. And if you haven't subscribed, let's pop this up here. And you go here and you say, all right, let's check out what's going on in the Digital Learning Channel. Once you get in there, and I don't want to start the video because it's going to give me a crazy loop for everyone to see, you want to hit that little red subscribe button down below, and that just keeps you up to date on all of the great information coming out from JCPS Digital Learning in JCPS Digital Innovation and all the great people we have on here. And then even after we take these and break up the episodes into the 20-30 minute chunks that most of them are, you can come back and watch them at your pace on your time, and their presentations will be linked not only as they are in our schedule, but to be in the description of their individual videos, which makes it easy to find. All right, and that puts us right to 2 o'clock. So we have Janet and Alyssa here to talk about some book stuff, I do believe.
Yeah, we're going to talk about the updates that have happened in teachingbooks.net. Before I turn it over to Alyssa, I am Janet Lanham. I'm from Library Media Services Department. And our department brings teachingbooks.net to JCPS, all teachers and students and families. And you can access teachingbooks.net through your Clever link, or you can, when you access it through Clever, it takes you to the full, robust, all of teachingbooks.net. If you enter through your school's LibGuide, NTI Online Resources tab, that will take you directly to all of the full text, read aloud picture books, which I think is now over 1,300. And there are also full text middle and high poetry read alouds, and also some full text middle and high chapters, but no full text books, but lots and lots and lots and lots of full read alouds on picture books. So now I'm going to turn it over to Alyssa Yokota Byron, who is our representative for JCPS from teachingbooks.net.
Thanks, Janet. Hi, everybody. It's lovely to get to present with you today. I'm so excited to share a little bit about teaching books. As Janet said, you all have access to these to this database, and so we definitely want to make sure that you know how to explore and use it. Right up top, I'll just let you know that I am always available for questions. I'd love to hear from people. So if after this you're thinking, okay, but I have something else that I'm curious about, please do feel free to reach out. I'd love to hear from anybody. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen really quickly, and then we can dive in. So, oh, I have to find the right little button there. There it is. Okay, so now you should be seeing my screen. Perfect. And we're talking about teaching books resources specifically for the virtual and blended learning, because right now we're having to be a little adaptive with what we're teaching and where we're teaching. And so we're going to talk about that. We're going to look at how do you log in, because that's a really important element, finding those resources, and then virtual teaching ideas. It's really important to know that your access is provided by the JCPS Library Media Services and the wonderful people there, Janet being among them. So reach out to Janet or Jessica Garvin for information. I believe these slides are available to you to get that information later as well. And your access directions. So what this is a student level of login, which means they get access to everything on the site, but they cannot use some of the customizable tools that are particular for educators, like custom reading lists, custom lesson plans, and then some of the sharing tools. But this will get them in from home. Of course, if they're going through Clever, they don't even have to think about it. For you, you'll want to sign in as an educator using your @jefferson.kyschools.us email address, and then you can have access to all of that customized content. So that's the nitty gritty, but that's kind of the boring stuff. What I want to get to is the juice. Let's go to the site. This is Teaching Books. I know I'm logged in as an educator because it's welcoming by name across the top. If you don't see that, you can open that toggle menu, 3 lines across the top left corner. And above the sign out button, you will see an educator login button. If you see that, go ahead and click on it and use your school email to sign in. The main thing you want to think about with Teaching Books is that this is where I go to find resources that support the books I'm using. While you will not find ebooks on here, you can find a wealth of things that can help you teach those titles, in addition to, as Janet mentioned, complete book readings. So we're going to go through some of that, but I'm just going to start with, let's find something that we can listen to from an author. Say, for instance, that you are reading With the Fire on High, which I know is a Kentucky Bluegrass 9/12 title this year. I would search for that title using our search bar across the center, and now I have access to all of the resources to support it. And we're just going to start out by listening to one of our original resources, which is something we've made in-house. It's our Meet the Author recording with Elizabeth Acevedo. And let's hear what she has to say.
Hey, good people. My name is Elizabeth Acevedo, and I'm the author of With the Fire on High. With the Fire on High is the story of Imani Santiago, who is a teen chef growing up in Philadelphia, and she's also a teen parent. And this story idea actually was a hodgepodge of different things happening at once. I decided I wanted to participate in National Novel Writing Month. I wanted to attempt to write prose and to see if I could complete a project entirely in prose. And the day that I decided that I would be joining National Novel Writing Month was a week before it actually began. And it so happened that I was watching Chopped that evening. And so as I'm thinking about a potential story idea or what I would want to write, I'm also watching this episode where young people are competing on Chopped, which is a Food Network show. And I remember thinking, I know exactly the young person who I want to win. I want to write her. I want to see how she would pit herself against these other competitors. And so initially With the Fire on High was about a young woman who competes on Chopped. And it became a very different narrative when I met Imani Santiago and started thinking about her child and how often we read stories about young people who are deciding whether or not to keep a child. But here was a young woman.
Pause and just skip down just to show you that she continues to talk now about the challenges of writing her character's voice, really wanting it to be authentic, but understanding that it's not an experience that she's had. So this is a wonderful example of a Meet the Author recording. And what's great about these is that you get to get an introduction from the author. They get to tell you about their own book. And I always find such great ideas that I can take back to my students with this. For example, I listen to this and I think, well, I'm really getting to hear some of the ways that she found inspiration. So how am I coming up with new ideas for writing? I listen to this and maybe I want to go, well, we all watch TV, right? So what am I finding from my TV that I can now take a story from? Or maybe when I fall down, I really want to think about character voice. What are the kinds of questions that I need to be asking myself to be authentic to that character, even if it's not my experience? So listen to these recordings and take inspiration for ways that you can pull activities or ideas or conversation starters out of these particular resources. Now, the important piece about these resources is that we need to be able to share them, right? Because I can watch it, but how do I get it to my students, especially when they're home or maybe using this an independent time? That's where I'm going to use my share tools. And that's this red share arrow underneath the cover image. I open that up and I get to see now QR printables and digital share links that will allow me to put this particular resource in any space that will directly communicate with my students the way that I need it to. I'm going to keep talking about this share box, so don't worry, we'll come back to it. But I just want to point out again that we have this red share arrow, and you look for it all over the site, and that's how you get that access to your students. I want to go back quickly, though, to our title image, because remember, teaching books as resources to support the titles you're using. So we search for With the Fire on High, and what we find is original resources made by teaching books, author interviews, which are great for author studies. You can find book guides, activities, and lessons. So if I want to, for instance, this one has a great reading guide provided by the publisher. I can also create customized lessons because I'm signed in as an educator. You can find book readings. These are actually narrated by the author, which are delightful. Book trailers to get students excited. Vocabulary lists, and more. And if I want to look underneath the book cover, you'll see we also have a link to Google Preview. So if you're wanting to find ways to get students really hooked on titles, but needing a little bit more context maybe, you can get some access to that through those Google Preview links. And that was just by searching for the title With the Fire on High. Maybe though I'm not teaching with high school, and so I want to look at a younger reader. Another title that's on your Bluegrass Awards is the preschool title, Bear Came Along. And before I disappear, I'm going to just quickly show that by searching, what I'm pulling up are not only titles, but anything that aligns to that search for authors and illustrators, lists of words and series, and subject matter. You'll also find things, if I search for those complete book readings I've mentioned so sneakily before, if I search for that, now I get a featured section that also gives me a link to that. And I'm going to come back to this. But we're going to go to Bear Came Along first. So I like Bear Came Along, and I want to find the resources for that. Let's take a listen to this Meet the Author recording, the illustrator, Leywin Pham.
Hi, my name is Leywin Pham, and I'm the illustrator of the book Bear Came Along, written by Richard Morris. When this story first came into my hands, I have to admit I was having a really hard time. It seemed as though all the news was bad news, and every time I opened up a newspaper or turned on the computer, there were just difficult stories facing me. It seemed as though nobody in the world was getting along, and I think I was really looking for a story about happiness, about joy, about coming together, about being together as a group of people, about living together in this world. And then here comes along a book called Bear Came Along, and it seemed to answer all of those questions for me.
Skip ahead a little bit. Listen to this whole thing. It's absolutely delightful. But she talks a little bit about how she creates a 3-page spread without words. And here's where she's going to talk to us about what that really does for her and why she wrote that.
Children. In this particular case, though, right in the middle of the book, there's a moment where Bear has met up with all of his friends. They come to a break in the river. They all look forward, and there's a waterfall. And the way the story is told, it simply says, until, and there's a pause, and the line reads, all the animals tumble down. And for me, I needed to make a pause in that particular moment in the book. I needed to give a moment for the audience to react, for the kids to look and say, oh my gosh, there's a waterfall coming. For the animals to all have a moment of shock on their face, so that the message of the book about all of us coming together, everybody comes together at that exact moment. Not only do the characters in the book come together, but the audience, the people reading the book, the person reading the book aloud, the kids looking at the pictures, everybody is in that precise moment together. And I needed to have that moment prolong itself as much as I could. So I gave it 3 spreads. You can see the animal's face, you can look at what the animals are looking at, and then that very frightening moment where the animals are tiny and the world is enormous. And that moment, to me, is how I want the world to be. I want everyone to know that as enormous as this world is, we are all in it together, and we're tiny in this big world. And when the fall comes, the fall doesn't have to be bad. It can actually turn into quite a happy tumble.
So again, anytime I'm listening to these, I'm always looking for what can I do with this? How can I take this with students and make it not only something to be exciting about the book, but also just to do more with it. In this case, I imagine that this can be a great conversation starter, especially now in these times where a lot is up in the air and it seems like there's something always really challenging right around the corner. So how can we talk together about how we're in it together? What does it mean to be in it together? So using these not just for connections for the titles that you're reading, but also to enhance other conversations that you may be having. Use this in an advisory setting, for instance. Certainly using picture books beyond younger readers. I love using picture books with high school grade kids. They love it too. They get so excited. And if you make it really about the conversation, you can do so much with them. But I want to make sure that I get this to those students. And now you're going to recall that we talked about that red share arrow, and that is just underneath the cover image again here. I'm going to select that. And perhaps what I want to do is I want to prompt students to engage in this conversation on their own. So maybe I'll actually assign this via Google Classroom. I select it there, I give them a little question prompt, and then they have to answer back as part of their assignment. Or you can embed it in a classroom page maybe that you have. Just so you know, anytime I use these share links, students will not have to sign in. Again, if they're getting through Clever, it's okay, they'll already be authenticated. But if they're accessing it or their families are accessing it just through the link alone, they will not have to sign in to access this particular resource. Now, if they navigate away from this page, they'll be prompted to sign in, but your access information is always available to share with them as well, and they can get it through Clever. So those are some things for sharing. What's another example of what we can do with virtually engaging our students? One thing I want to think about is also, maybe we talked a little bit about writing prompts with the Fire on High. Another one, I really just spent some time with your state booklets today, and they all have delightful resources. So I highly recommend you exploring those, and I'll show you where those are. But this is another one. And this Meet the Author recording, I love. It is so, it just brings up so much. So now I'm going to prompt you to think about what you might do with this as you listen.
Hi, this is Lynn Kelly, and I'm the author of Song for a Whale. I'm going to tell you a bit about how I came to write this book, and then I'll share an excerpt with you. I learned about the 52 hertz whale who sings at a frequency other whales don't understand. Most whales sing at a frequency of about 10 to 20 hertz, and this whale sings at a frequency that's too high for other whales, about 52 hertz. For humans, it's still a low sound, but it's too high for a whale. He's been out there that we know of for at least 30 years, singing this song that only he sings with no response from any other animal. I was fascinated right away with him, and then couldn't stop thinking about him and decided to write about him. And then I decided I needed to come up with a character who would be just as fascinated with this whale as I was, and who would feel compelled to get up and do something, to reach out to this whale and let him know that someone hears him. And that's when I came up with the character of Iris. Like many deaf people I've met in my work as a sign language interpreter, she's the only deaf student at her school. So there really isn't anyone she can talk to at school, and things aren't so great at home either. So when she learns about this whale in her science class, she decides that she needs to do something to find him.
I'll pause this there. And again, I encourage you to listen to the rest of it because it's really lovely. Hopefully you are coming up with all kinds of ideas on what you might do with this particular lesson plan. For me, I'm sorry, not lesson plan, Meet the Author recording. For me, what I hear is a writing prompt where I can have students now think about maybe things that make us unique. Create two characters who are unique and totally independently their own, and talk about how they can come together. Write a story where they come together and they're celebrating those differences. They get to connect because of the things that make them different from others, maybe, or just special. And so getting to use this as a way to get inspiration from that. You also can take a really great lesson to collaborate with a science lesson and say, find a story about an interesting animal, and maybe one that is an outlier from the other animals like them. What do we know about them? So having students learn how to do a little research based on this as well. Again, you can always share those tools. Maybe what I want to do now is I actually want to send students that maybe have access to this title through classroom sets or whatever you're using. Then you can print label sheets or make a shelf talker. And what they'll then see is a QR code. You print this out and cut this up, and then they just instantly have access to this Meet the Author recording. I'm looking at the book, I want to know a little about it, and I can just listen to it right there. So using those share tools for a number of ways to really increase this time of having to be flexible with virtual use and in-person use as well. I want to make sure I note also, you may have noticed that there's a transcript for this recording, and the transcript tracks along as you listen. Well, you can translate this page as well using the Google Translate function at the top right corner of the page into any language available through Google Translate. So if I wanted to translate this into Spanish, for example, I select Spanish, and now the text on the page is translated. The audio itself will remain in the spoken language, but the text will be translated Of course, it's Google Translate, so it's imperfect, but it is something that can really help if you have students who maybe are learning Spanish or students who speak Spanish as a first language and for whom this might be helpful. And the same goes with sharing with families. They want to have more access to the titles that your students are reading. This can kind of help bring them into that as well. And that Google Translate was a drop-down menu from the top right corner of any page. Okay, there's a ton more that I want to share, but I want to be mindful of our time. And the things I want to make sure I point out, besides looking at those resources we saw, are again, you can get access to complete book readings just by searching for complete book readings. And here you'll find pre-K-12 complete book readings. This is not just picture books. We do have a full range of grade levels represented. And if we look at, let's say, our upper level readers, what you'll find here are not only poems read in full, but oh, it looks like we're feeling a little slow today. Well, you'll find not only poems read in full, but you'll also find books like, I know a lot of our classics are read in full, some Shakespeare titles are read in full, so you will find those complete book readings across grade levels, and that can be a really helpful access tool as well. And the filter results that I'm using are these left side options. Sadly, we're feeling a little busy today. Teaching books is getting really popular in this virtual time, which is wonderful, but when you explore on your own, you will get to see that. Hopefully, this will take me there. There we go. So the other area I wanted to show you is for educators. It's this right across the top. Explore this on your own because there's a lot to discover in here. For instance, I know we're all really wanting to make sure diverse books are highlighted in our spaces, and so you can find a whole way to explore diverse titles through this. But I'm going to take us right now to virtual teaching ideas. Virtual teaching ideas will be where you can come to find quick ideas where you're thinking, okay, I think I like teaching books. I think it's really great, but I'm a little overwhelmed by the options. Can somebody help me just get started? These virtual teaching ideas can be good, quick, kind of in your back pocket options. For instance, you might discover under intermediate, we've created a whole calendar of ideas for you, September timely topics. And ideas at a moment's notice, if I look at my September ideas, you will have a PDF option with quick access to titles for broken down by grade level and themes. And this is excellent for those rainy days or just the, oh no, today I have been thrown into maybe a different role or wearing a different hat than normal. Grab some quick ideas here. And we're going to work to kind of keep these fresh for you each month. These are written out for pre-K to 8, but you can always find inspiration for using these at the upper grade levels as well. And that was from For Educators, Virtual Teaching Ideas. And the last thing I want to make sure I point out before I show you where your reading lists are is something that we've actually created off the site, but you can take as sort of an idea for yourself. And that is using Google Slides to create virtual classrooms or libraries. I'm sure you've seen this. I know this is circulating a lot right now, but these Bitmoji spaces, right? What we've done is we've created a slide using fun Bitmojis, and then we've linked each of the covers to different resources. Maybe you want students to explore poetry. You can create your poetry tasting this way. It's fun, it's interactive. Or you want to set up a history class. Everything on here is clickable. Same goes for science. I select my microscope, and now I get taken to a book reading about microscopes, and it's fun and it's interesting. So there's a lot of ways that you can get creative, all again using these share tools to link to wherever best meets your teaching needs right now. So really kind of taking those ideas of what you're finding in teaching books and dropping it into the spaces that work best for you. All right, the last thing I promised I'd show you are your reading lists. Back on my toggle menu, I'm going to go to your reading lists. And here's where you'll find those Kentucky State lists. So we've updated these for 2020, 21. Tons of great resources here. Definitely take some time exploring that. And as you can see, you could always make your own as well. I'm going to stop there and see if there's any questions I can answer.
I have not seen anything pop up in the chat box. Have you, Jim?
No, ma'am.
Okay, great. Janet, is there anything else you'd like me to show?
I don't think so. I think you pretty much hit all the highlights. If you would show them just the lesson plan real quickly, how they can use the lesson plan templates.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So what's another title I have? Maybe you're teaching Look Both Ways. I go to the title. I'm going to scroll down, pull up my lesson plans. In addition to any lesson plans that we've found external to teaching books, we also have these that you can create. So for instance, if I wanted to have a cultural representation reflection, or I consider the representation within this title, I'll select that. And because these are multi-leveled, what this supports is scaffolding as well as differentiation. So if I look at a sample of what this can look like, let's say level 3. Now you have options to consider the text with what's in the book and what do I see in my world, just so I can kind of think about what I notice. And then maybe we're going to consider what about these identities or experiences did I notice in the text? Moments of privilege, power, and or bias from the text within these communities or experiences. And then what's nice is that this last question that does not highlight well, but you can adjust that to whatever your needs are. It is available as a sample. I'll show you how that shows up. So if I go to my level 3 to create here, now this is that question. So I can edit this to whatever I need, and then it will show up in that last space on the custom questions. And if you create one, once you create one, it will appear here. So you actually you do see your lessons here. It will show up under your lessons. I've already made some for myself. If you don't see it, it's okay. It just means you haven't made one yet. So that's where those are. And we have them for story maps, which go to fiction, text, and nonfiction read and respond options as well.
So once you make your lesson and you have that, then you can just share that with the awesome share options and send it to your Google Classroom as an assignment?
Absolutely. So let me
that is
go
amazing.
ahead. We'll take this giver one, for instance, and I'll select share. And I have all the same options. The only thing you may not see is those shelf talkers. Just so you know, the way we distinguish that is shelf talkers only show up for resources that talk. So those are going to be your Meet the Author recordings, book trailers, etc.
Thank you so much today, Alyssa. You really covered everything from A to Z. And again, Alyssa is always available to help with any questions or demonstrate anything to your school. And then we at Library Media Services are always ready to help you, as is your school librarian, who's really experienced with teachingbooks.net too.
Yes,
Yes,
thank you.
Thank you so much, Janet. And this has been a pleasure. Like I said, I'm not going anywhere. You can always ask Janet for my contact information. And I believe this slide deck is available to you all in your magical world of what you got set up there.
Thank you. That was amazing. I really liked it. I mean, I have a little bit of attachment with librarians, so seeing the ease of implementing that in the Google Classroom with the QR, the shelf talker, I think is what it's called. That's great. When you set that up, you could do like a whole bulletin board of different just options because it gives choice. Really cool. Great stuff. I appreciate it. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you.
All right, all. Next up, we have our last JCPS presentation today from Raymond Yaksik and Stacy Edelman. It is extracurricular clubs during NTI, which you could have a reading club, use some of those books, and I just so many fun things there. So clubs during NTI, how do you do that in a virtual world? I think that is great to see, and it is 2:30. So I'm Jim Unger from JCPS Digital Innovation, and I'm going to kick it over to our team here. Stacy, Raymond.
All right, good afternoon. Jim, I have to say, I'm really digging your shirt today.
Why, thank you.
Very cool. Well, we're very glad to be here today. My name is Stacy Edelman. I'm Director of Federal and State Programs for JCPS. And my colleague Raymond Yaksik is our Title IV supervisor here with us. And we want to talk to you today about something that we would love to see happen for our students right now, since they are home on NTI. We know one of the things that they are missing out on by not being at their schools is the opportunity to be involved with extracurricular clubs. So we want to try to do something about that. Ray, are you going to run the slides? Okay. So why are we talking about this? Why do, Ray, I think you have to reshare your screen there.
Can you see it now?
So while he's resharing that, we wanted to talk for a minute about why we think this is important, why this is something we should do. As I said in the introduction, we know that kids are missing out on this opportunity. And one of the big things that they are not able to reproduce or have during their NTI synchronous classes are those really rich peer interactions and authentic peer interactions around a topic of interest to them. So that's a lot of what kids get from being in clubs. It's not just about learning more about something that they're interested in, but it's about interacting with their peers, collaborating with their peers, and enjoying themselves at the same time. So we feel like this is a big thing that kids are missing right now, and we would love to be able to provide some opportunities for students to be able to do that.
And
Another reason, oh, go on, Ray.
no, I was going to say, like, the infrastructure piece is another big one for us too. This past summer, we had a lot of different summer programs, but one of them was Enrich with the Summer League. And that was really eye-opening, and it was a lot of on-the-fly learning experiences for everyone involved. But the big thing was that we realized that students really want to get involved. They want to have those new experiences that we were talking about. And the infrastructure that we were creating there was based upon student interest and kind of built on that NTI model. When we did Summer League, when we are looking back at our data, we had almost 5,000 kids participated. When they were doing points, we earned about 5 million points. And it was amazing to see, like, this infrastructure that we built had application beyond that. I actually, one of our teachers was one of the ones that kind of planted this seed that said, hey, like, this would be a really good opportunity for clubs. You know, like, one of the adventures was like stop motion photography. And that was like a discussion point for us was, hey, like, these students have a passion for this type of photography, and not every school is going to have the option of doing that. They're not going to have that ability to offer that club, not for any reason of, like, you know, not for anything bad, just because we're able to offer more opportunities. So really just using the infrastructure we have, the students need to talk together and just look for opportunities for them to interact and work together. That was really kind of the why.
The other piece of it, we know we're going to have to do this virtually, and our teachers already know how to connect with students virtually. They have expertise now in Google Meet or in Microsoft Teams. We also know that our students who needed a device were able to get one from the district or from their school. So students have the ability in their homes then to connect virtually with these clubs. So all of those things are already established and set up and provided for kids. I do think, as Ray was talking about, this is a wonderful opportunity for kids that maybe don't get these kinds of experiences. Either their school doesn't offer certain clubs that they're interested in, or transportation is a problem, or the schedule doesn't work for them. But this is really a great opportunity for us to try something new. We're not bound by the walls of a specific school. We don't have those transportation considerations. And so now is the time. We have the infrastructure. We know our kids need this. So we wanted to move forward with trying to find a way to provide some exciting, some interesting club experiences for kids across the district. We are looking to provide club experiences for kids at all grade levels. They don't all have to be in the same grade, but we do want to keep similar grades together. So we're going to be looking for club opportunities for students in kindergarten through second grade, then different clubs for grades 3 through 5, then some middle school clubs and some high school clubs.
And when we look back at our numbers over the summer, 3 through 5 and 6 through 8 were predominantly the most popular. Whenever someone submitted a project they wanted to do, or so we're hoping that we can really get a lot of K through 2 and 9 through 12 clubs going. They need those experiences as well. So just putting that plug out there.
Definitely. But we also did learn that we had high schoolers who participated in Summer League and wanted to get those different kinds of experiences. They interacted with teachers during office hours, so they wanted to connect and they wanted to talk about the things that they're interested in. So we do know that high schoolers have this need and the desire to do this as well. So we want to get your ideas. We are looking for teachers, educators out there in JCPS who are interested in sponsoring a district club. We brainstormed, we did some research and found lots of different areas that we could have different kinds of clubs in. And these are just some examples of the types of clubs. These were some of the things, these topics here were either from feedback we got from students and parents at the end of NTI 1.0 in the spring, or based on the adventures and the experiences that kids engaged in during Summer League that seemed to be the most popular. These are those topics. But we also leave room for creativity. There could be a club idea out there that doesn't fit into any of these categories, and we're open to those suggestions as well. But our next steps are, we want to put out a request for proposals from teachers to find out who's interested and what your ideas are. We want to see those creative ideas to try to get kids engaged and involved.
And as she said, don't in any way feel like you're being kind of constrained by this. Like that a lot of the adventures we saw this summer were so amazing, and they had such creativity. Some of them were like designing video game music, which I thought was fascinating. And just think about outside the box. Kids were so interested. So these were also ways for us to provide ideas. But as she was saying, don't feel like you have to be constrained by this.
These are just some ideas, again, from the data and the information that we had from the spring and over the summer. These are some things that we brainstormed. We know that TikTok videos are really popular, and a lot of kids wanted to do that. Yoga seems to be a popular option. Kids are also really creative. They want to do things like songwriting, write poetry. They want to learn about other cultures. So these are just some ideas of the kinds of clubs that we could have, but there are lots and lots of other ideas. Some of them may be really unique and high interest like this, but there is also a place for those more traditional clubs that we have always had in our schools, yet they could potentially be offered district-wide. A lot of our high schools have a Spanish club or a French club, depending on the languages that they offer, but that's just for students at that school. Well, now we could have someone offer a Spanish club that's open to any students in the district. who are interested in that kind of thing. We also have schools that have video game clubs, or they have young Democrats or young Republicans. Again, we can offer those kinds of things as well. We just want them to be district wide so that we give students across the district opportunities like this.
And another important note as well is a lot of these ideas weren't just workshopped, but Crystal Hawkins and her amazing team and family resource, they also did surveys at the end of NTI and at the beginning of summer. And some of these things were also what our community wants, what families and kids want. So a lot of these, if you see something that you're really passionate about, like, for example, karate, something like that, that was one of the topics that was really asked for. So just feel like if you were an MMA fighter, I'm not saying that's a good thing, but regardless, if you have a passion and you have something that you feel like the community would really embrace, that you want to kind of help facilitate, please feel free to reach out.
Thank you for providing a non-example, Ray. I think MMA Fight Club would probably not be encouraged, but there are lots of other great ideas.
And I mean, yeah, definitely.
Hey, just
as
a
we
moment.
said, many more.
Stacy, there was a couple questions in the chat. One was, where and who will receive the proposals? And I think they meant, who do they send them to?
We are getting to that. I'm glad they're excited. I'm glad they have questions. We are going to get to that information next and give some of those details.
All right, I'll hold off on some of these questions and see what we cover and what we don't.
Okay.
So these are some of the things that we are still kind of developing, and we're still kind of working through. But these are some of the details that the coaches or the sponsor is going to be really, that we're looking for them to do. You want to talk about them a little bit, Dr. E?
Absolutely. So as someone is preparing their proposal, we would ask that they think about recruitment materials. What are they going to do to stand out and make their club really interesting to make students want to sign up for it? We need to ensure that these meetings happen after school hours, because our students all have obligations for their synchronous learning and their asynchronous work times during the school day. So these would be just as if we were in person. These would be after school hours. We are asking that club sponsors plan to hold meetings at least bi-weekly. Weekly would be great, but we don't want to go a whole month without a club having met. We also are asking for a minimum 12-week duration for the club. It could go longer than that, and that would be fantastic. But a minimum of 12 weeks so that kids really have something to sink their teeth into. We do already have an established JCPS school stipend rate for school club sponsors, and that is the rate that we will be using. There is some room for variability in that stipend rate depending on the frequency of the meetings, the length of time, the number of students that can be supported. So we're going to take a look at that. But that rate that's in the JCTA contract is the sponsor rate we will be using. Some expectations for the sponsors: they will need to plan meetings and plan experiences for the students. We really want this to be student-centered. We want kids to have the opportunity to interact. It's not about listening to a teacher or the teacher driving everything. We want students to be able to interact with each other. We also want this to be inclusive. We want this, some of these club options to be great opportunities for students with special needs, English learner students, gifted students, students who are living in different kinds of homeless shelters, for example, foster care students. We want to make sure that we don't put up barriers. We want as many students as possible participating. We are going to have to limit the need for extra materials because we really won't have the capacity to provide a bunch of materials to every student participating in the club. So club sponsors will need to be sensitive to what students are going to have available to them. And the last thing is, let students lead the way. You might start out with a great idea, but if students come up with some plans and want to go in a different direction, or want to really sink their teeth into a different kind of project, we think that's great. We want students being at the center of this program. So the next steps are, we want to get the word out to teachers. We are creating a request for proposal. It'll be a Google form. We're going to get that out as soon as possible. We're going to use district communication tools, as well as asking schools to use their communication tools to send out that link. We're going to give about 2 weeks for interested teachers to submit a club proposal. And then we're gonna, once we have those, we're gonna put all of those out along with the recruitment materials provided by those sponsors, put those out to students, and use about 2 weeks to recruit students and give them a chance to sign up for the clubs that they want to participate in. And students may choose more than one club if they can accommodate that, if they have the time to do that. And again, we'll use district communication tools to get the word out to families about signing up for clubs. And we'll also ask our schools to use whatever tools and modes of communication they're using to put that out to students.
And for any interested teachers, kind of how it says that proposal, we're obviously modifying it, but we want to kind of use that same proposal technique that we did for Summer League. So a lot of that recruitment and all of that, a lot of that language will be developed authentically as they're doing that proposal and submitting it. So we're trying to align everything that we're doing so that teachers don't have a lot of extra, or any kind of sponsor, a lot of extra busy work. We're trying to make this as streamlined as possible to make sure that kids are getting as many opportunities as they can to participate. Now, you said you had some questions. We have some as well that we wanted to go over. So what questions do you have for us before we go over some of them?
So the ones I had in chat, which you covered, there was a question about paying for that. So it'll be a district stipend, and it'll be based on the club. It's flexible, based on the JCTA contract. Will these be school specific or spread out across the grades? As I took it, it could be anything as long as it's district wide. It may be grade specific or not.
Right. They won't be school specific. These are clubs that'll be open to students across the district. Now, that doesn't mean that schools can't offer their own clubs. They may already have a plan, and they may have some established clubs that they are continuing to offer virtually to the students at that school, and that's great. This is more a district-wide opportunity so that we ensure that all of our students have a chance to engage in something like this. So the district, Whitney, I see your next question. Yes, it will be the district that is paying the teachers who participate, who sponsor these district-wide clubs, yes.
And that was one of the most exciting things that we had, was just, we're not constrained. I think that actually took me a couple of days to process a little bit, was whenever we talk about clubs, it's always constrained by schools. And this is an amazing opportunity that we've been given to use existing infrastructure to kind of say, hey, like, what are ways that we can engage students that's not constrained by those traditional kind of clubs that we have? We know that we have amazing teachers and amazing people who can sponsor these things. So let's just think of ways that we can forego that kind of constraint and allow this to be open to all students across the district.
So some questions that we brainstormed that we thought may come up. One is, when will clubs start? When will these club meetings have to start?
Well, we were, as the kind of presentation said, it was October 11th is what we're aiming for. But being realistic, we are transparent. We're still in the process of listening to feedback, but middle of October, with the end of September being when we finalize all acceptance from teachers or any kind of JCPS employees.
And how long will the clubs last?
12 weeks.
12 weeks minimum. They could last longer, but a minimum of 12 weeks.
Yeah, we really wanted to make sure that we were allowing students to engage in that for a while. So a 12-week minimum was this us kind of saying like, hey, here's what we want to provide and invest in. You can obviously do longer, as you were saying.
So when we, or if and when we go back to in-person instruction, will these clubs continue or will we have to shut them down?
Yes, they will continue. I mean, one of the things that I was excited about was even hopefully after we return to normal and things settle down and no one's afraid to go out anymore or all of that jazz, this can continue. This is a model that can continue in the future. That doesn't have to be. So yes, even after we go back to a more traditional in-person synchronous, yes, this will continue.
And who's going to recruit the students to join the different clubs?
Well, that's a two-part question. One will be ultimately whoever wants to sponsor the club. As I was kind of saying, is we will provide opportunities. For example, when you're submitting it, like what is there'll be sections for you summarizing what your club is, and it'll say explicitly like this is for recruitment of students, so use student-centered language, things like that. And so that there'll be various instances of that where the teacher or the employee will really like put forth that work to recruit, and ultimately we want them to do the recruiting. But at the same time, we're using the existing infrastructures of things that we already did during Summer League in the summer to help facilitate that communication and build on that existing infrastructure. But ultimately, the teacher.
So I saw a new question pop up in the chat. Will this be all virtual for the time being? Yes, it is. We aren't able to do any kind of in-person clubs with students. These are meant to be done virtually after school time. Can a club have more than one sponsor?
It's a good question. Yes. Yes. And that was going back to that kind of stipend question and then flexibility, which we're trying to work out. But yes, clubs can have more than one sponsor.
And what is expected of me if I am sponsoring a club?
Good question. Ultimately, we want you to provide very engaging opportunities for students, not only in terms of what the club is, but also opportunities for social, emotional. As we said, we want people to be there at least bi-weekly, preferably weekly, but at least bi-weekly for at least 12 weeks, using Google Classroom or Microsoft Teams. We want to create any kind of advertisement or student recruitment. We also basic data collection, like who's there, attendance, things like that, so that we can help provide any kind of future reports or progress monitoring of the program. I think that pretty much covers it. And no MMA club. Yes, that's
no MMA club. That's correct. Yeah. So what students are eligible to join these clubs?
All students. As you were saying before, being inclusive, all students, K through 12. I mean, yes, every kid.
And who do I contact if I have questions or if I need help with this?
Obviously, we want to be very supportive of anyone who wants to be participating in these. So there will be people involved that you can contact for support, just like there were for summer programming. Myself, we'll have a team that you'll be able to contact should you have any questions. And all of that will be spelled out clearly whenever someone fills out that Google form or whenever they get selected.
And let's see. What if my club requires specific materials?
I know one of the examples was like a guitar club. Obviously, a guitar or some kind of application to be very similar would be required. So I would strongly encourage, if you're having a club, to try to think of it in ways that it doesn't require additional materials. But obviously, if your club requires it, we would just spell it out. We would make that clear for whoever where it would be to join. If you're a guitar club, this would be necessary or this would be necessary. So if it's necessary, you'll have an opportunity when you submit your proposal to kind of say what those are. But if possible, try to think and ways to make that not a barrier. We're trying to remove barriers to make all kids have an opportunity.
Right. And we hope that, we can see that most clubs probably won't need a lot of specific materials, but there will be some demand out there for some more specialized kinds of clubs, and that's okay too. I think that in the recruitment materials as well, the communications with students, that needs to be stated very explicitly up front so that they know that if they want to participate in this particular club, they need to provide their own whatever the item or material is.
But there was a lot of success, and I will say that was a difficult thing to kind of think initially for the summer programming as well, as we had amazing proposals. We had about 230 proposals that were accepted. And a lot of teachers, when they initially submitted proposals, there was barriers. For example, if coding was one of them, there might have been programs that were required, or it required this or that. And people were very, very, very creative and just fantastic about thinking of creative ways to overcome that. So just know that even if that you think that it's not possible, there's most likely a solution.
I think we've gone through all of the questions that we brainstormed in advance.
So I had one question.
Oh, yeah.
Why not? So you brought up like software being an issue, but since students all have devices now, let's say I wanted to have Minecraft Club, would the district be willing to send out software to student devices to accomplish my club?
I have no idea. I would ask someone like Jim Unger, who is in the IT3 department, about that. Those are things that if people have these ideas and want to make this proposal, obviously we're going to have to investigate things like that because we're still going to be committed to protecting students. We have to be very certain that we're using things that are ethical and that are safe for kids. So there might be some things we have to investigate.
And ultimately, we don't want to promise something and not deliver on it. So we're hopeful that there'd be solutions like that, and we're really hopeful, but we don't want to under-deliver.
Under promise, over deliver. I like it.
Right,
yeah, I didn't want to flip-flop them, so just wanted to say that.
Well, Ray, if you'll throw that last slide up there, that has our email addresses on there. If anyone thinks of questions later, don't hesitate to send us an email, and watch for that request for proposals to be coming out this week. Please tell your friends and neighbors. We want to encourage as many teachers as possible who think they might have an interest and might have a great experience to offer for kids. We would love to see it because we think our kids need this. We know that virtual instruction, NTI, is not the same as being at school for a variety of reasons. And if we can help with this opportunity for kids to interact with each other, then we want to do so. So we appreciate those of you who watched today.
And ultimately, we are really excited because, like, for example, I keep going back to summer programming. The kids that participated, they went all in. As I said, there was 5 million points that were, accumulated across the entire district. But a lot of those students were spending so much time on these things, and they were just so interested in all of these various activities. And it was kind of hard to close that program out because there was such a passion from the students. And it was kind of like, how can we harness that passion and offer these opportunities throughout the year?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think it's great going district-wide. Sometimes you have a great idea for a club, but I can only get 3 or 4 kids in my school that really want to do it. Mm-hmm. Well, here you're going to have a huge pool of students to choose from. So that's great. I just think this is a great idea. Absolutely, and they definitely need it. And when they do decide they want to dig in, they're going to dig in all the way.
That's right.
All right.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you both for being here, Raymond, Stacy.
Have a good day, guys.
Bye.
You too. All right. And that brings us almost to the 3 o'clock hour. And I do believe from 3 to 4, we should be seeing a guest visit us from Savas. And they're going to be talking about Success Maker and focusing it on the COVID slide in reading and math. Until they get here, or I give up, we're going to look at the Twitter feed real quick. If you don't follow us, please do jump on. Follow us on Twitter at JCPS Dig In for digital innovation. And you can see amazing tweets. Oh, the virtual yes cards are coming out again. And I see what I do believe is our first one from Russ Hockenberry going out to Katie Wolf at Klondike Lane Elementary. And these are just great ways if you get tagged, or you can take them and tag someone you know and think deserves a yes card for being an outstanding individual. You can send it to them, tag it on Twitter, tag us on Twitter, hashtag JCPSDigIn, same as our @ we will retweet that and share the love that's being spread out there in education. And Steve Durham's got one up. All right, I see that I'm behind. They caught me while I'm doing this, and that's all good. All right. Very nice. So lots of good things on there. Follow that. Follow the hashtag. You'll get ideas. You can see lots of things going on in the district and around the world sometimes. And let's see where we're at. Still looking empty in here. If you go below the video that you're watching, if you're watching it, you'll see a little button that says subscribe. You need to take that button and make sure that it's not red. If it's red, you should click on it to make it go away, and it will then get you some updates. Whenever our channel takes these videos, these lives that go on for 3-4 hours, we take those and we break them up into little bite-sized chunks to give you some viewing pleasure later on. And then you'll generally find the slide presentations, the resources they use in the description of the video. So hit that subscribe button and check us out. All right, flipping back. Uh-oh, someone's joined me. Hello, hello, testing 1, 2, 3. I do believe that's one of my teammates, because I see the awesome logo, right? All right. If you haven't heard, by the way, I'm going to take this time and I'm going to plug one of the little things that I like to work on. Minecraft is now available on Chromebooks. Check it out. Put in a ticket. You can get Minecraft on the Chromebooks at your school. Hello, Annette.
Hi, sorry about that. Elaine had to send me a new link. I was getting an error message.
Uh-oh.
Wouldn't let me in.
That's all right.
I thought you were just not going to have me come on today. So I was getting ready to relax.
I understand. I was holding it down for you, though, just talking away.
Well, the shirt alone is all I need.
See? Thank you. Thank you. That got a lot of attention today, and I appreciate it.
I like that. All right. Are we ready to get started?
Absolutely. Its floor is yours.
Okay. I'm going to share my screen.
Perfect. We see it.
Okay. Let me get down to where I need to be clicking around. And my name is Annette Taylor, and can you still see me? I think you probably only see my screen now. Okay, great. Well, it's great to be here again this afternoon. I hope all of you are doing well, getting a lot of great training today and these last couple of weeks. I am here to talk to you about Success Maker Focus. And I'm very excited that you have it. I know the district is just getting that going. So I'm going to give you just an overview of what Success Maker Focus is, and then kind of give you some next steps as well. This is our agenda. I'm going to probably go back and forth on a couple of these, but just wanted you to know that we will be giving you an intro to Success Maker Focus. I'm going to show you what it looks like as a student, as a teacher, and then we're going to talk about the next steps of what you're supposed to do next. Okay, so let's get started. So Success Maker Focus was started as a result of the coronavirus pandemic. It came about simply for that reason. If you know anything about the Brookings Institute, they are showing now that 1.5 billion children worldwide had their traditional academic lives disrupted, which you are all very well aware of because it disrupted yours as well. 45.1 million of those are US students. So think about that. We are a large part of that 1.5 billion children. So make no mistake, you as an educator, you know this, that educators across the country and the world, you rose in amazing ways to the task of teaching them from anywhere and everywhere that you could. I've seen some teachers teaching from their bathrooms, using the bathroom, the tub as a whiteboard. I'm sure you've seen that. We also realized we had a part to play and began to form a plan. The result of that plan was Success Maker Focus. Sorry about that. I'm going to see if you can still hear me okay. Oh, that's okay. And you feel free to stop and ask questions if you stop me at any time to do questions if you need me to. My printer went off and it's sort of distracting for me, so sorry about that. But I did want to point out that the gaps that students are seeing in their learning are, and my screen is blinking. It did this morning. 1 second. Let me see if I can get this going. 1 second.
It looks good here.
Okay, making sure. Okay.
We're on considerations and instructional content and practices.
Perfect. That's what you need to see. So
All
let me back
right.
up right there. We just wanted to let you know that we're focusing the curriculum on math and literacy priority standards at each grade level. Students are going to have the opportunity to engage with priority content from the previous year to determine if there is any unfinished learning. And as we know, since this started in March, there's a lot of unfinished learning out there for most of our students. So that is why we've created Success Maker Focus. So it's going to provide the instruction to fill those gaps with remediation instruction in the reading content and intervention instruction in the math content. I'm just showing some of those content priority standards on the screen. The focus will also offer teachers fantastic real-time data to help guide their daily instruction. Okay, just for a few moments, we're going to take a look at the student side of the curriculum. The reading curriculum is designed in a lesson style structure with tasks and questions that align to key standard areas by grade level. These are the characters that they will see in the K-5 environment. So they're gonna see Ferris the ferret a lot. He's the tall dude in the middle, and they'll see the others as well as they move through the content. They sort of host them and sort of help them along in their activities. If they are in the third grade and up, they actually get to see these guys, and we call these the cognitive coaches. The kids actually start to call them the avatars because they get to choose an avatar when they're working in the program. So let's unpack the lesson structure. So once they log in and start their session for Success Maker Focus, we introduce the lesson objective through the movie player. And then step 2, it launches the text reader in K-2 or the reading portal in grades 3 through 8. And then they go into independent practice, and then they will actually have some remediation if it's necessary. So I wanted to show you just sort of a little graphic of what a lesson might look like. For K-5, they're going to have focused instruction, practice, and application. And I wanted you to see on the left side there just a few screenshots of what those might look like. The 6 through 8 environment is going to look a little bit different, a little bit more mature. Their focused hosts are going to be actually teenagers that teach them the content. Okay, so I'm going to jump right in. I'm going to change my screen. Let me change and share a different screen with you now. And I'm going to log in as a student, because I want you to see what it's going to look like from their end. Okay, so we're looking at the reading, and I'm logged in as a student who happens to be a 4th grader, or maybe, I know he's a 3rd grader. So I'm going to click on the Language Arts SM Focus reading course that's been assigned to him. It was assigned to him by me today. Okay, so once he gets started, he comes to this type of a screen, and he clicks play. Okay, so James, I don't know if you can tell me, can you hear that actually happening on the screen?
I heard it right at the beginning, and then it kind of went away.
Okay, we had that trouble this morning too. I'm not sure what's going on between the two systems we have, but normally you're able to hear what's going on. And it's okay if you can't, you just won't be able to hear the sound of it. But I was hoping you would be able to hear what was going on. Otherwise, that's not a problem. The teachers will have access to some demo accounts later.
Okay.
But I did want to show you, they see that in that intro little video, and I'm in a K-5 environment, obviously. And then they can skip that little intro if they'd like. And then they just simply click on the folders that Ferris is holding, and it will go into their session. Okay, so actually when I came into this session, this student has already done his focused instruction. So he's just watched a short movie about the skill that's being taught in this lesson. He also now goes into a text reader. So if you see here, it's got the name of the book, obviously the cover of the book and the author's name. They simply click on Go Forward. And at the top, you'll notice that he has several tools that he can use. He's got a menu over here that will allow him to look at the glossary, which is in English and Spanish. He'll be able to check his progress and then modify his volume if he'd like. On the top of the screen, you see a highlighter that he'll be able to use. The notes will actually let him start typing notes if you have him, if he wants to write something that he wants to check back with later. He also has a text tracker. This is my favorite tool that he's able to pull down and just reveal the one line that he wants to read. I know that for myself, I would like to have that for every book that I read now. But we know that those students that have trouble with tracking, that's a great tool to use. They don't have to use it, but it is there for them if they'd like. They can also click here to hide the notes, and then they click the text tracker again to have that removed. There's also a read to me feature. If I click on this button, it will actually read the text to me. Okay, so we see that I was clicking on it to have it read to me. We can also gray that out or turn that option off for students because we know we want, some of our students in the upper grades don't need to have it read to them. And we want them reading at their own level, and they will be reading at their own level based on what focus course you chose, which grade level focus course you choose. So we can turn that option off. Yes.
Real quick, so would that be something you can turn on and off per student, or if you turn it off, it's off for your whole class?
It's per student or a group or a class, however many you need.
Excellent.
Good question. Thank you for that. So I wanted to show you those tools. You simply read the text, then they move forward. They read the next page, and they get to the point where they see an activity with questions that they're going to have to do. Now, this is a lower grade student, a third grader. So he's going to see something a little bit less mature, obviously, than a 6th through 8th grader. But they simply click on the activity symbol to the right, and it will give them a little bit of a video here. I'm not going to play that one right now, but it'll come up to where they have to actually answer some questions. I did want to show you to the right, you have the translate feature. And if you click on that button, it makes the whole screen, it sort of outlines it in pink. And they just simply right click on the words, and it will bring those up, and it will read it out loud to them in Spanish. Okay, so that'll be an option to turn off as well, James. I'm glad you asked that about the read to me feature. You can turn the translate option on per student or per whole class, however you choose to do it.
Are there any other languages, or is it just like the default is Spanish?
In reading, it's Spanish. In math, we have 60+ languages.
Nice.
Yeah.
Will they be getting more languages on the reading?
I'm sorry?
Will they be getting the 60+ languages on the reading?
I don't know about the 60+, and I don't know what the roadmap is for that, okay. But we certainly have that as one of our top priorities.
Excellent.
Because I would love to see more languages as well. Good questions. Keep them coming. I need to have these questions. I'm sure you're asking exactly what they're thinking. So I did want to show you that as I'm in this system, if I decide that I'm not going to finish my session and I want to leave early, I need to click on the close button. Now, if I'm in a session and my teacher set it for 20 minutes, which I suggest for reading that they do at least 20 minutes, because if they don't do a full 20 minutes, they don't get that full balanced literacy lesson inside that lesson. So I suggest 20 minutes. So, but let's say I have to exit early because I'm working from home and mom's ready to go do something else. I need to make sure I click on the close button. And when I do that, it makes me choose, do I really want to end my session? So I click yes. And if you'll see on the screen, saving assignment results. So it's not that it's going to delete the results if you don't click on the close button. It's just that it may not populate on your reports until the next time the student logs out correctly. So that's just a little point of information, just if you remember that later. Okay, so let me go back to my PowerPoint. Are there any questions about the reading portion before I move on to talk about the math?
We had one question from Rebecca, and she wanted to know, is there a diagnostic to help create the lessons, to kind of place them, I think?
There is not a diagnostic. You are receiving Success Maker Focus, which is based on just grade level standards. We do obviously have Success Maker, the regular Success Maker that has the option to do that. And I believe a couple of your elementary school schools are using that. But for Focus, it is simply for that summer slippage, if you will. It's just going to fill in the holes that they need in the prior year's standards. Good question. Okay, so I'm going to go now to show you the math. So these are the characters that the students may encounter when they're in the math environment. There's several of them, as you can see, and they actually get to choose a character when they first log in. We have Captain Jack Cavo, the avocado. We have Paws, the polar bear. Wheels, the hamster. So they'll get really familiar with these characters, and they sort of host them through their activities. The math and the reading look completely different, and they're different characters. So just wanted to make sure that you understand that it's going to be different characters as they go through. Okay, so let's unpack the math standards here. The math program, as it relates to the priority skills. So as we talked about in the reading, the Success Maker math curriculum takes a little bit different approach to instruction. All the priority standards from the previous grade level will be essentially in one big bucket, and students will receive questions from different standards throughout their learning journey. And if students answer questions correctly and demonstrate a pattern of mastery, Success Maker will mark those skills as mastered. If the student exhibits an area of struggle, Success Maker will first determine if there is a struggle point with a prerequisite skill. If so, the questions are going to be targeted to bolster that missing prerequisite knowledge. If there's no prior skill gap, Success Maker will offer targeted tutorials and then give the opportunity to follow up. And students will then engage in a sequential practice session, not practice of the skill. Okay. So let me go back to my other screen again so you can see a math course really quickly. Switch my screen over. I've lost you on my screen. Here we go. Go back to my other. Sorry for all the switching. I have way too many monitors. I'm sure you're familiar with that. Okay, so now I'm in as that same third grader, but I'm going into his math course. So as I start this, he has to click to begin. Okay, so as you see, I have to choose a character, And there's a countdown clock for 30 seconds, so they don't spend their entire session looking through these characters to choose one. Now, if they're in the lower grades, K to 2, they will only see these 3 characters. K to 5, or 5th grade and down, would see these 3 plus those other 3 you just saw. And then the 6th through 8th grade students get another additional 3 that look, and I'm in as a 4th grader, so you're not going to see those. But it's that tiki and the pixel, the hologram, and those kind of things. So they just choose a character, which I didn't, as you see, so it's going to pick one for me. And then they click play. Okay, so they're obviously having to do multiple things here. They're having to drag and drop and decide which ones go where. And I'm going to get this one wrong so you can see what happens. Okay, so I've gotten this wrong. It's giving me a little bit of a scaffold, and then I'm going to try it again, and I'm going to put something else wrong. Okay, so it's giving me another scaffold. If I continue to have questions like this that I do get wrong, one second, let's get rid of this. Okay, so they can also, as you see in the math, I just had a problem about fractions and dragging and dropping. The next question I get is going to be different. Math is not done in sequential lessons. It's going to be given to the students in mixed presentation, and they don't normally know what's going to come next. So we kind of keep it that way because, you know, their state tests, they're going to have to do things randomly. If you're doing any kind of assessment, you want them to have things in mixed presentation, and math doesn't have to be taught in lessons as a balanced literacy lesson. So as you see here on the screen, I can choose to enter the answer because I've solved it on my own scratch paper, or I can click solve it step by step.
Enter the answers.
I'm going to get this wrong again, and this is an answer pad down at the bottom. It is not a calculator. Just want to make sure they understand that. So I'm just going to get this completely wrong.
Subtract in the ones place.
Okay, question?
Yeah, so it was a good question, and they wanted to know, is there a lesson at the beginning that teaches the students how to navigate through Success Maker and how to find activities, the calculator, etc., or do the teachers need to go over that with them before they do this?
The teacher will need to be going over that with them. We do have a video in progress to show them those things, but obviously they'll have this video as well, and I'm going to walk through the tools. I was going to do that. I'm glad you brought it up because I'll walk through the tools with them as well. And these are also customizable for the same way they were in the reading. Just really quickly, you see that same icon here. I chose Spanish for this one as well. They just simply click on the words and it will read it out loud to them in that language. Okay. The menu has many more tools than the reading does. Obviously, they will have a protractor they can use. They will have a ruler, a scratch pad, where they can actually work their problems out here if they'd like. If you don't want them to have the scratch pad because they may play around with it, I'm not sure you would ever have students that do that, but that would be something we can turn off. We also have formulas, we have measurements, we have symbols, anything they would need. We have a glossary, and that's available in English and Spanish. And then you also have the progress screen where they can check their progress in the middle of their session. And then the language will show them what language the teacher has chosen for them. On the show answer, and this, for the most part, we usually turn show answer off, but this is an option that will give them the correct answer so that they may just need to know what are you looking for in an answer? What is it? I just need that extra scaffold. You know, I might be an L, I might be special ed, something like that. I will tell you that if you have show answer turned on, it does mark that problem wrong. So most teachers will leave it on for a little while and then go back in and turn it off just because they see students using it too much. And you'll see on the reports if they're clicking on it too many times. Okay? All right. Any more questions about it while we're in here?
So there's one is more of a general question. Are students automatically enrolled or do they have to be added manually?
The students are going to be in the program based with Clever,
Okay.
The teacher will then just go decide what grade level standards they want the children to see. So all they'll have to do is do a couple clicks to assign the course to them.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking that this was going to be some sort of courseware that pulled all of those from the school rosters. I just wanted to be sure.
Exactly. So they'll be integrated with EasyBridge and Clever, and it'll all work that way.
The other question was, will teachers have a student account that they can practice, make videos from, things like that?
I don't know the answer to that. It depends on how many licenses. Now, as a teacher, the teacher can go in and see all of this content. I don't know that I guess they could make it. They're using some sort of Camtasia. Is that what they're talking about?
Well, I mean, not Camtasia. They use like a Screencastify, and they like to go in and show the student what the student's going to see, not what the teacher would see, especially for the little ones.
Oh, that's a great idea. And like I said, this is a new virtual world, as I said. So I know teachers using this in different ways. Let me get out of this real quick. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in as a teacher so that you can sort of see what we're talking about, and you'll be able to determine if that is the way you'll be able to use it. I will show you on the close button. If you click close and click yes, it does that same thing of saving the assignment results. And then I want to make sure that that student logs out correctly by clicking on log out. Okay, so I'll go in as a teacher and I'm going off topic, but I want to make sure that I answer that question before we move on. Okay. So I'm logged in now as a teacher. So your teacher dashboard will look like this once you gain access. And if you go into the courseware module at the top, it's going to be listing in the shared course repository. You'll see all of the focus courses. So I've got 1st through 8th grade, because remember, if I'm assigning the 8th grade course, it's actually all of the 7th grade standards that the student may or may not have finished learning. So whatever you're assigning is whatever you want them to see from the grade level before. However, if I wanted to see inside this course, I just simply click on the gear beside it, and I go to view the course settings, and I can go to the standards here and drill down. I'm just going to drill down on these arrows. And as I get to problem solve with measurement data from a line plot, I see that there's a link here. This is a link to the actual activity the student will be doing when they are working on that skill. So I can simply click this and show it. And I'm not going to click play because I don't want the sound to start. But I can click play like that, and it will play it for the student, and it doesn't affect any data. It's just out in the middle of cyberspace, and I can play it as many times as I'd like. Now, a lot of teachers will take this link, which is just a URL to that actual activity, and just either email it or Google Classroom, whatever you're using for your instruction, and they can send the actual link to the student directly. Does that sort of answer that question a little bit? Because they won't have to actually record anything because it's already recorded for them here.
Yeah, the biggest question is just, they're wanting to make sure they've got tutorials or the ability to make tutorials that will look similar to what the student's going to see.
Exactly. So they can play as many of these links as they'd like. They can go drill down into any of the courses and find the activities that are available there. If you go to a younger grades course, let me try a reading one. I want to show that too. I'm going to view the course settings and go to the standards. I'm drilling down all the way into this skill, and these 3 links are the actual lesson. So I'm going to look at these in order. So this is the DI, or the direct instruction, and then the independent practice, the interactive reader, which is the book Outer Space, and then this would be the independent practice. So the teacher could choose to use all of it, or they could just use the one that they want to show. So they would need to preview those to see if it's what they want. That's the best way that I've seen it used. I have teachers all over the country using it this way a lot, and they'll either go straight in through SuccessMaker, or they'll just paste the links onto a document so that they'll have them at the ready. Okay. One good thing about the reading is that you actually have another tab here. Oh, sorry, they're not listed here. I forgot about that. I'll show you where else to get them, which is actually an easier way to get to them. But there's a worksheet for every reading skill, And there's a worksheet for some targeted math skills and some targeted reading skills. And I'll show you where to go to those as soon as we look at the resources. Okay, I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint unless you have some other questions right now.
No, I think you're okay right now. Once again, somebody was asking, is there a diagnostic before they begin that places them? But I think
no, there's not. It's Success Maker Focus. The regular Success Maker does have a placement test, but this focus is just for unfinished learning.
And if they've got Success Maker, they can use that diagnostic and kind of get an idea, can't they?
Absolutely, yes. Okay. I just spoke with a teacher, a school person this morning. They have purchased the regular math program to go along with their Envision Math, and they have the ability to have the placement test. But that's a good question. Okay, so I wanted to talk a little bit about the data. Let me go back to my other screen. Here we go. All right, so the data that you're going to be able to find in Success Maker Focus is, to me, never ending. You'll never use it all, and you're going to find the things in the data package that you will use more than another teacher. There's one report that you may like better than they like. So just look at the ones that I'm going to show you and decide. And when you get into the program yourself, you'll start to decide which one is best for you. So if you'll notice over to the left, as you log in, you're going to see your students here. And you're going to notice that they're listed there, anyone that's assigned to you through Clever. Okay. If you're a specialty teacher or if you're departmentalized, it all depends on how Clever is set up with your student information system as to what you're going to see here. That is actually being worked on right now between your district people and ours. So I can't give you any more information about that since this just happened last week. So just know that is being worked on right now. Okay. Down at the bottom is where you will actually run the reports that are so wonderful that I'm very excited to show you. So you'll just simply click on the students that you want to see on the report, or just select them all by clicking at the top and click Run a Report. And I'm going to go through the reports that will be available for you. The first one is the last session report. And this is called the last session report, but I call it the behavior report because it allows me to see what my students are actually doing the last time they logged in. So the last session they took. All right, so you'll notice I've got all of my students to the left. And it just brings up whoever I've chosen when I ran that report. Then on the green area, this is where I'm going to see the raw performance for that day. I see that, for example, this first student answered 13 questions, got 11 of them correct, and so her overall score was an 85%. Okay, then we have the orange area, which is our usage data. And I know this report doesn't look like it has a whole lot of information, but it is the last session report, and it is looking basically at their behavior and performance just percentage-wise for that one session. It does not include cumulative data. So over to the right, you see that they have their session date, they have the total number of sessions they've taken, and the time they spent during that last session. So for example, Caroline is my first student. She did 20 minutes on May 24th. But if you see down here, this student only did 18 minutes. So she logged out early. The asterisk tells me that she did not finish a total session. So you have these little indicators here that just kind of help you understand their behavior when they're working in the program. Okay. The next report is the cumulative performance report. And this is, as it says, cumulative of everything they've done since the first time they started. Okay. So the first section is the same as it was. It's going to be the names of your students. The second section we're going to look at is their usage in the green. And then in the orange is their instructional performance. And then the best part is the mastery. And I'll get back to that in just a second. So you have all of your students. Then in the green, we have their usage. And when you look at this, you'll notice that it looks like 21 minutes and 27 seconds, but this is cumulative. So it's actually 21 hours and 27 minutes. So Caroline Blake has done 66 sessions, and she's done a total of 21 hours and 27 minutes. So it's going to give you an overall of every minute they've been in the program. Okay, the orange area, this is their overall performance, and this is the same thing that was on that last session report, but this is cumulative. So the last session had just the number they answered in that last session. This is overall. So she has answered 1,174 questions in that 21 hours, and her overall percentage is a 68%. This percentage, the exercises percent correct, we're sort of looking for them to score anywhere 65 or better, if you think about it that way, because we're looking at, you know, skills that they may not know, some things they do know. It's sort of a little bit of a pie chart of things they know, things they sort of know, and things they have no idea. Think about it that way. The purple area is their mastery data. So in this area, we see the number of skills that they've had assessed, the number they've mastered, and their skills percent mastery. So in math, we are looking at 90% or better here. And in reading, we're going to be looking at 75% or better. But we also have to take into consideration that you have chosen the grade level standards that they're getting. So if I have a fourth grader and I've chosen to give him the third grade, which would mean second grade standards, you have to remember that that score that they're getting is on that level of standards. So if they're scoring, say, hundreds every day, that might indicate that I might want to enroll him in the next level up, because if he's making 100 on everything, it may just show me, oh, he's not got as much unfinished learning as I thought, so I can raise him up a level if I'd like. And then AP just simply stands for acceptable performance, and that means that they've scored that 90 or better in math or 75 or better in reading, like we talked about for the skills mastered area. Okay, the mastery tab is in this section of modules here. We've already looked at the courseware module for a few minutes, but the mastery module is going to allow you to see a good bit of information about how they're working in specific skills. So to see the overall data, we go to that mastery tab in the middle portion of the teacher dashboard, and you'll notice here that it's in blue. From there, you can utilize the drop-down menu to select either your state standards or priority standards identified in Success Maker Focus. So you will probably pick the Success Maker Focus math and reading from the drop-down. It looks kind of weird, but that whole long bar is one large drop-down menu. The legend indicates, once you click on it, once you see here, I see here I've got several skills listed, and I see a lot of color over here, and it's sort of like a stoplight. The green simply means that whoever is in this little group of students has mastered that skill. The yellow means that they have it in delayed presentation. They're getting that remediation on it. And then, of course, the red means they did not master it when it was presented to them. So as we move forward, and if I go back to here, if I'm clicking on this color, it takes me to a screen that looks like this. So as you see here, Grace, Isabel, and Xavier, they've mastered identify the figure that is different, okay? If you see Hua, he has that skill in delayed presentation, meaning that he's getting some remediation on that skill right now because he didn't do well the first time it was presented to him. And then LaDonna, she struggled. She's had, as you see on the screen, she's had 45 chances to master that skill, and it's finally said, we've given it everything we've got, and she did not master that skill. So that's another way for you to see what holes are in her learning. Okay. All right, so to run the mastery report, you will simply click on mastery, and then at the bottom of the screen, click run mastery report. It's the only report that is not listed here. The last session and the cumulative performance report are in the run a report area, but the mastery is set aside by itself. Okay, when you do click run mastery report, it brings you to this screen. It runs the report. So LaDonna, this is her report, and it gives me every skill that she's seen in Success Maker so far this year, and it gives me her mastery status to the right. And I have one page per student. It tells me their assigned level, their current level, and their time spent. The IP level would not apply here because they're not using the regular Success Maker. So as you can see here, she's having some issues with the yellow and red skills, but she has also mastered several. So that report, you're able to print it out and send it home or email it, however you choose to use it. Okay. Just wanted you to see a little bit of a larger picture of those skills and how that looks as in the mastery status. Okay, so your next steps as what you're going to need to do to get started is once your district has completed the Clever integration with the Easy Bridge, and I'm not even sure how that's, I don't want to say too much because I don't know what they know about what's going to happen, but once the students are rostered through Clever, you will simply log in. And again, as you see, we clicked before on the courseware module. That's where I went to show you those Success Maker focus courses. And yours will actually be highlighted in white. They won't be grayed out like this. You'll simply click on courseware. All right, it's not clicking. You'll click on the shared course repository, which is what I did a few minutes ago. And then you'll simply decide which course you want to give the students. Once you do that, you simply click on the gear beside that course. When you do that, an actions menu will appear, and you'll either assign it to one student or a group of students. And it really doesn't matter if you're a class, say, of fifth graders. If you have a class of fifth graders and you want 4 of them to do the 4th grade course, 5 of them to do the 3rd grade course, you would just simply click a few at a time, and that's going to look like this. You just simply choose their name, and once they're highlighted in yellow, you just click assign, or you can select all if you want all of them to get it. And it will assign it to them. Now that last screen here is where if I had a group with my name on it, or if I'm, say, departmentalizing and I have my partner teachers group and my group, I can assign it to either or, individual students or groups all at one time. Okay. All right. So James, I'm going to stop for just a minute and see if there are any questions. I did want to go back into the program if they want to see anything else about how to assign courses.
I have not seen anything new. We had a whole bunch at the beginning. I had one actually that I had written down from back at the beginning when you were exiting out, and you were saying that they have to go out a certain way so that it would do the little circle and it would save their work. If they exit incorrectly or just close it down, will they lose the work they've done?
They will not lose the data. It's saved, it's cached, if you will, in their browser history. And once they do log back in again and log out correctly, it will populate on the reports. So one of the biggest questions I get from teachers is, I watched the student do a session, but it's not showing up on the reports. Yep. And I'm going to say, remember when we talked about them logging out correctly? Yep. That's why. So as soon as they log out correctly the next time, all of that will populate back in.
But so that'll be saved locally on that machine until they get back in there, but the teacher won't see it until they log out correctly. So they have to do that for it to show.
Right. It's actually saved in the cloud. I mean, it really is just out because it's a hosted environment, so it won't even have to be on that device. They can go on a different device the next day. Yeah. So that's a good point.
Yeah, I mean, that'll be a big difference when we get back into the brick and mortar because they won't always have the same machine typically.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I did want to show you teachers, and I'm pretty sure they're probably familiar with my Savvis training if they've been through any of these other sessions with Savvis products. But if you haven't experienced my Savvis training, I suggest strongly that you go and create an account. I'm logged in already here, obviously, unless I've been sitting here too long. I'll refresh and see if it's going to let you up. See, I'm going to have to sign in. But you'll just simply click on create an account. I'm going to go ahead and, oh, I'm sorry, I'm not sharing. As usual, I have way too many screens going. Okay. So and they're probably used to that as well. So you'll see here, you just go straight to My Savvis Training, and it's refreshing. And you'll come here, you just simply click on Create an Account, and this is a free account. It's not something your district has to purchase or anything. You have access to it. You click on Create an Account, And once you do that, it'll send you a confirmation email. Once you do that, just simply go to Success Maker in the search menu, and it'll bring you to this screen. Click on Success Maker, go to your on-demand training, and then under Success Maker 2020, since Success Maker Focus is part of the 2020 version, you'll go to the Access 2020 materials, and at the very bottom of the screen, you'll have an entire page that is just devoted to Success Maker Focus. And on that page, there is a video that I suggest you watch and also have your parents and students watch, because it's going to show them some of the things we just talked about as far as logging in and that kind of thing. If you scroll down a little bit further, it says how to assign Success Maker Focus, which I did show you how to do that, but if you're like me, you'll forget it the minute you get off of this webinar. So this is a handout that you can download if you like, but it shows you step by step how to assign it once your students are integrated into Clever. And then under here, we have a quick guide on interpreting those reports. And it's basically the same thing I just showed you, but it will give you something to look at and be able to do at your own pace. If you go to back to the Savvis training site, there is a COVID-19 page we've created for everyone that's dealing with this virtual world now. If you click here and you scroll all the way to the Success Maker page, and as a matter of fact, if you have other Savvis products like MyView or Envision, you can go to this same page. But the Success Maker at Home page gives you some extra support that might help you with parents that have questions. Now, you do not have the regular Success Maker, which is what these videos are about, but you do have access down at the bottom to all of the print materials that are available. These are not normally free, so we're giving them to you free now just because of the COVID issues that are going on right now. So you have all of the print partners here that we talked about for reading. You have some targeted math and targeted reading lessons. And you also, if you want to go to the math page, the just Success Maker math page, those math targeted lessons are in Spanish as well. So just explore this site. You can't mess anything up, but there's plenty to download. We have a teacher and parent FAQ. We have an at-home letter for English and Spanish. And we are going to be adding some information, more information about Success Maker Focus as the next few weeks, as we get to the next few weeks. But I just wanted to make sure you knew about these pages. Like I said, this is all free to you right now, so feel free to use it. And I'm going to stop sharing, but before I do stop sharing, are there any questions? I was told to leave some time at the end for some questions, so I've left about 10 minutes.
No, you're fine. You're fine. We have not had any more questions.
Okay. And their next steps would just be basically to wait to hear from the district about when Success Maker will go live as a tile in Clever. And they can I think they can check back to this video on the steps of how to assign it. And if not, they just go to My Savvis Training and it will show them step by step what to do.
Yeah, so that's two methods they have. They can go to the My Savvis Training, or they can check out the videos, because once we get done with these, we break them up and we put them back and host them on our channel so that they can scroll through it at their speed.
Great. That's wonderful. I think this is a wonderful way for you to do this. I'm sure that it's going to spread throughout the country, because this is the first time I've seen it done this way. I'm very impressed.
Oh, well, thank you. And we appreciate you being here to give us the training.
Oh, you're welcome. I love it.
All right.
So I'll give it a couple more minutes. Are there any questions from anyone else?
No, we covered them because I kept stopping you as we went to make sure we got them, and kind of died off there in the last few minutes.
Back to their day.
Okay. I know there's like about a 30-second delay, but I don't think anything else is going to come onto there.
Okay. I do have to ask you, what is the thing above your head on the shelf?
This?
Yes.
It's just a Halloween, just black, orange, and gray.
You really are ready for Halloween. Okay.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it hits September 1st, and it's time to decorate.
Love it. All right. Well, thanks so much for hosting. I appreciate your help.
No problem. Thank you for being here.
Much easier to have it with a host here. I agree. That's definitely true.
Oh, I'm sure. Yes.
Yeah. All right. Well, have a great rest of the day. And if anyone has questions, please tell them to let us know. That we have plenty of people that will reach out.
All right. Thank you.
Okay.
Have a
Thank
good
you so
day.
much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right. Well, I'm Jim Unger. This is JCPS Digital Learning Channel. I am with JCPS Digital Innovation. And we do have a couple minutes. We ended early. Yay. All right. So, while you're getting all that great Savas training, checking out all those awesome tools that are coming to you, know that you can follow us on Twitter at JCPSDigIn for digital innovation. And we will post all kinds of great information about the digital tools that are out there being used in the district. We like to highlight educators on here and the work that you all are doing out there during this amazing NTI 2.0. You can come back, you can check the schedule here, it has all the presentations used today. We will be back a week from today on the 21st with more trainings. This gets updated as we go. If you haven't, subscribe to the channel. All the things that happen today will be broken up and put back onto the channel so that you can search them up and watch them at your pace. As I said during her session, you can speed it up, you can slow it down, you can skip over me talking, do all those great things. And I hope you all have a great rest of the day. Keep at it virtually.